Oh, I'm so sorry, dude. I didn't see you in there, man. Hold on. Hey, what's up? What's up? I'm so sorry. Who's it?
Shane,
What? Yeah, what's going on?
what's going on? Do you just realize what happened today?
What happened?
The Pentagon, the veil of secrecy for 75 years, just imploded.
What happened? I didn't know. I'm not paying attention to shit.
Okay, so you know how about this weather balloon fiasco, right?
Yeah.
So the Biden administration to swipe at Trump because Trump was saying this never happened during my time. So the Biden administration looked back on sensor data, okay, that looked for these balloons, and they found 3 balloons during Trump's administration. So then Trump came back saying that's not our balloon, or that didn't happen, and then they recanted and said, well, actually, it did happen, but it was. And then they said what state it was over. Okay, how would they have figured out that data? Because they were building a UAP algorithm. So they just put in that one picture of a balloon, and it popped out 3 balloons. So everybody just realized, Congress just realized, okay?
Really?
Every
What?
Congress just realized that Arrow is a fucking farce, and the DoD's been playing games with them all along because they already have enough data to get everything out. They have 20 videos, right? You push it into this algorithm, and it's going to pump out numbers for the last 7 years of how many UAPs there were. So
Wow.
that's how it just imploded. Look at Kathleen Hicks, the director of Arrow's tweet. She's talking about sensor data. The Pentagon would never do that unless they are forced to. And guess what's about to happen? At the same time this is happening, because of this opportunity presented itself, Jay Stratton's going to come out, which was the head of the UAPTF task force tonight.
You know what? That's what I retweeted earlier because Joe, UFO Joe, he had put that, and I said, "What?"
He's
So I
coming
didn't know
out because
why.
of
I
this
didn't know
opportunity.
why. I knew it was him. I just didn't know why.
This wasn't planned. This isn't Corbell's style. He would hype this up. You know how he is, right?
What time is that? What time is that?
It's at 3 a.m. Eastern time.
Oh, I'm staying up. I'm gonna do that shit live from Portland.
I am too. I'm staying up for that. But he's doing. It's an opportunity presented itself for him. You know what I mean? That's why he's doing that, because this whole thing imploded. Biden's administration just called all the senators to come in on Thursday for a briefing. Every single senator, and it's not going to be over this Chinese balloon. I guarantee you that. It's going to be over UAP and how to tell the
Wow,
public about this.
it's
The whole thing. It's
crazy.
ironic, isn't it, that this happened because of Roswell, the weather balloon, and it's ending because of a weather balloon.
Well, it's a great transition to make a conversation. I mean, it's just a great conversation starter with people who might not even have been interested in UAP as much, but now they're interested in the Chinese balloon, and through some reference or what they've read, they've learned about or have heard the term UAP. And so I think that's a good conversation point to bring to people to be like, look, this was identified in like fucking 5 seconds. What we really need to find out is the stuff that is unidentified. Okay.
No, but they already have. So
Well,
Astro,
I'm just saying.
they
I'm just
already
saying of
have.
like bringing the
Yeah.
attention to it. You know, like I know that we
Oh
have
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
information
No,
to
no.
it.
But they already have all the information they need. That's the thing, right? So Arrow was playing games with us this whole time, like Blue Book. Arrow was set up like Blue Book, where at the end they were going to come back and say we didn't find anything, and except Congress was going to have a bunch of classified videos where it was like, oh, it could be China, Russia, we don't know, but we don't know. That was going to be the final conclusion, but they can't do that now because they have that AI system that if you feed in these videos, it's going to pop out all the historical data from the previous years.
Oh my God! Wait! Now I'm getting it. Sorry, bro. Obviously, if you study my tweets, I take a look at my
Shane, you get
screen.
it
All
now,
right, so
right?
yes, so
The
because
implications of what just
because
happened.
of that AI, they're realizing, holy shit, dude. Because again, yeah, oh my gosh.
Yep, they just realized what happened.
And that's why Jay now knows he can come out because again,
They fucked up
out
so hard.
themselves.
It's a perfect opportunity to come out.
Yeah,
it's going to
they
make
have
the
no
same
ability.
splash
They
the
have no
27.
ability to find this stuff. Whatever.
Yep. Jay was going to come out eventually. He was going to come out at AlienCon, but I don't think like this podcast was like for today, you know? The opportunity presents itself.
Bro, I didn't know until Joe sent that.
Yeah, like it was out of nowhere, right? There was no like
I thought it was somebody else, bro.
There was no hype announcement or anything from Corbell. I was worried. I'm like, oh, there's probably not going to be an episode today. But then I'm like, then all of a sudden it came out, and then I put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, holy shit! It's because of this stupid weather balloon fiasco that the Pentagon royally fucked up so hard. People are probably getting fired.
I should throw a Portland UFO Twitter watch listen party. I put that shit out there, dude. I just been putting that shit out. People just been popping in. What's up?
It's just on so
Shane,
late though in the East. I mean, I live in the East Coast, bro. Like 3 o'clock in the morning is so late.
Yeah.
Bro.
But this is gonna cause a splash like the New York Times article in 2017.
Yeah, I feel like the interview tonight, like whatever is said, I think is gonna be some good information. Maybe not breaking of what he says, but I think just him coming out with his credibility and the ties that he has it should be able, like if there were good journalists, they should be writing about this.
Astro, it's tied with this weather balloon phenomenon, right? That came out because of this AI system. So tomorrow, when those Congress members and the Senate Arms Committee come to interview and the media ask them questions, they're going to be asking them about how this UAP balloon thing works, and they're going to talk.
Well, can you explain the AI system a little bit more?
So this AI system the Pentagon was developing, okay? So it's a machine learning system, right? Remember how Lou in the beginning was talking about a machine learning system where if you put in a video, it'll tell you what it is?
Yeah.
So the Pentagon's been developing that, and that's how they figured out when they put in this Chinese balloon this time happened. That's how they figured out for the last 7 years during the Trump administration if there were balloons that were seen, you know? They had all the sensor data from the satellite. This is satellite data that this AI system feeds through, okay? So they found out the balloons, the location of where those balloons happened, what season or what month even those balloons were shown over the U.S. during Trump's administration. To get back at Trump, Biden did a super, a really bad,
Appreciate it.
Biden screwed up royally to get back at Trump because he just exposed the censor data, and Congress, I feel like, didn't even know about this censor data. So they created the Aero office to get more and more data, and the Pentagon was going along with it because at the end, they were going to push it out like how they did with Blue Book and say there's nothing here.
Now I get what you're saying. Now I get it. In that them revealing him sort of trying to make this political in identifying an opponent that didn't do something, he's revealed that we've been tracking this shit all along and we have a lot of this data already. Yeah, dude.
Yep. Yeah, they're over. It's finished.
So look, I didn't mean
it's finished.
So guys, I appreciate you telling me and keep me up because again, I'm in Portland and I didn't know my mic was on and I'm having a beer up on the patio looking at the lights.
Astral, here's what's interesting, right? So the Biden administration is holding a briefing for all of the senators, not just the senators that are in the know. For all senators. Do you think they would hold a briefing for the senator of Commerce over a weather balloon? No, it's about UAP.
Yeah, bro. Imagine if this shit just escalated all the way to fucking disclosure in like a week.
It is. It's about to lead to hearings. That's why Jay's stepping out right at this moment.
That is actually pretty crazy. Pointing that out too, of like Corbell definitely would have hyped this shit if he had it before, and maybe this is a move by Stratton strategically to get things in motion because of specifically what's happened in the last couple of days.
Yep, because it can't be ignored anymore.
Well, and there's not that many balloons flying around.
We know Congress has seen some classified UAP data, right? Classified photos. They put it into this AI system. That AI system, within a day, within like a minute, who knows, right? Is going to pump out and shoot out 50, 100,000 UAPs that we're seeing in the last 4 years, for example. That's how powerful this AI system is. And that's how they were able to get the balloons that they needed.
I had to take a break from AI. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah. And I believe Biden didn't even consult the Pentagon. He just did it on his own. He just went to NORCOM or NORAD, Geospate, and asked them to do this. And because of the secrecy, they weren't even in the know, and it bit them royally in the ass.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, because I've been paying attention, man. So I've kind of been actually doing my shit in Portland, and actually right now, like I said,
the press is even picking.
Well, wasn't it? This would have never happened if a civilian hadn't really reported it, right? Or
yeah, and there's the irony, right? The Pentagon tried to spin it in their way, but it just royally backfired in both ways. That guy who took the video of the balloon in Montana first said it was a UFO. The Pentagon freaked out about that. So then, as damage control, they told the truth that it was a Chinese balloon.
Now wait, so are we saying that? Well, there's no. See, look. First of all, here's the thing. I agree because there's no fucking way. Because I've known for a while. Hell, Avi Loeb talks about the fact that astronomers and shit have been throwing away photographs for years. So obviously NASA and shit has it, but them out themselves like that. Yeah, and I wondered why Jay was coming out. I mean, he may be coming out behind that shit, but I was like, oh my God, I know who that is. I was so psyched. I didn't know it was tonight though.
It's
Dude,
tonight.
I'm gonna throw a goddamn Portland watch party for that shit. I'll put that shit on.
Bro, Lou's probably cracking open the wine and having a fucking nice steak right now.
Dude, that's cool.
Because, like, holy shit, like, the irony, right? This started with a weather balloon, and now it's going to end with a weather balloon.
You know, Mick West has been pretty silent on it.
Mick West is probably he's probably getting his bunker ready with his kids, saying, we need to get prepared.
He can't claim all the UAPs are balloons now.
Yep. Dude. Like, imagine the system, right? It's going to pump out, let's say, in 4 years, 10,000 UAP sightings, right? Because it's machine learning. So if they put in a good video, which they're going to put in a good video, let's say, of like the giant triangle craft that Lou talks about with occupants, they put that in, and it's going to machine learn, and it's going to pick not through civilian data, photos, through satellite data, right?
Well, who got the ultra detailed photo of it? Like, that wasn't any civilian camera or anything, right?
Yeah, the satellite is very detailed, right? So it's gonna pick out all this shit. And what if there's peaks and valleys, right, of everything? And the Congress and the Senate is gonna be so scared, like, holy shit, this shit is increasing. What if it increases and there's a mass sighting during my time of election when I'm in the freaking office? I don't want to be the one freaking breaking this news to the American people.
Well, hold on.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. There's a lot. There's a reason Jay's coming out though too. But could also be because bear with me, and this is just being a devil's advocate as well, because the fact that China has been making incursions repeatedly and no one said shit or did shit, right? And part of that could be, let's play devil's advocate, so we don't want to be disappointed. But again, Jay Stratton coming out is what blew my mind. So I'm agreeing, because the fact that he's willing to do that, he knows that this is going to lead to that. So I do agree with that. But let's not.
Because the only way they picked out the Chinese balloons is because they were looking for that UAP.
Oh yeah, I know, because they had these videos. They're like, oh, we don't have this, but yeah, and I get all of that. Wow.
Imagine how mad Congress. Basically, they wasted the Senate Arms Committee and the Senate Intel's Committee. All these hearings and closed brief. All the money spent was all farce.
Well, bro, stop, bro. You're preaching to the choir. These are the people who are like, I got crash retrieval documents, right? I'm downstairs drinking a beer, telling the lady, we're talking aliens. I can get in. She goes, no, I used to be a director of MUFON, or not director, of MUFON. Cute young lady, mind you. Oh shit, this is recorded.
Yeah, but like, to these naive congressmen, right? that think the DOD is on their side. This is all coming out. They're not going to have any more trust with this topic, at least with the DOD.
It'll come out. So real quick, hold on real quick. Actually, Chase asked to do me a solid, man. So can you retweet this? Let's do this. Let's retweet this. That's kind of like a pre-weaponized watch party, and I'll just be chilling here, hotel. We'll be doing this, talking this subject, talking about Jay and all this other type of stuff. So kind of retweet it as that. I'm going to, but RSO is starting to wear off. So let's get it.
How do I post articles in the Jumbotron?
So, okay, if you go down to the bottom right of your phone on an iPhone, there's a little bitty chat bubble. You click on that. That's called the thread. You click in the thread, you can post articles. When you post that article, there's the button that you use to share. There, you'll see that it allows you to share to this actual group, and that's the Jumbotron. And hopefully Chase or somebody can do a screenshot.
Well, if you want to share, up top, you'll have to click on the tweet, and then you'll do the little box with an arrow on it. You click that, and there should be like a section where it says Old Vets, and that'll post it up top.
Okay, I see what you mean. I gotta find the article though. Give me a second.
Yeah, I'll start hashtagging and stuff too, but I'm gotta grab me another beer. That's important, and figure out the whole situation of the edibles. These are wearing off.
So I shared with the. I'm gonna share. I think it's shared. Yeah, did it share?
Did you? Let me see.
Yeah, it's up there.
So look, the Pentagon is talking about their AI sensor system. They would have never done this. But the shit's about to hit the fan.
Well, dude, what I think honestly could be, and I wasn't a real advocate of like bringing this through politics and litigation and all that, but I think one of the biggest advocates and conversation starters can be if this topic is like debated in the debates coming up with a lot of the elections, when it's a topic, and I think it could be polarized either way. It doesn't have to be political, because I think everybody who ends up dealing and looking into this topic is sort of like, oh, our government needs to do more, like we need to figure out more stuff. And I think that's one of the conversation pieces that I think if you could just bring it up for them to start talking about.
There's no figuring out. They have the answer, but they're not sharing the answer with Congress.
No, so but I'm saying like the conversation on a bigger scale of like making action happen. I think that in a bigger scale of like getting the information out. Sure, I agree. They definitely have that information. I feel like more like, but if we get it on a bigger scale so that politicians are debating it, like that's one of the topics.
That's what they're doing
like,
now.
What would you do for UAPs in the next 4 years if you were the governor? You know what I'm saying?
I think we're going to get, I mean, maybe I'm optimistic, but based on this fiasco, I think we're going to get confirmation very, very soon, within weeks here, maybe next month. And then for crash retrievals, they're probably going to have to make it into a political event kind of thing to get it out of private sector's hand.
Real quick, bro. So I need to interrupt because I can't DM anybody either. So because I use my DM limits for today. And I was going to say...
There's a DM limit?
Oh, yeah, there's a DM limit. Hell yeah, there is. So I can't DM, and I got people DMing me shit. And this is also, I was going to say, Andy, I did not luck out. So if you know, but other than that, let me just move on to the fact that, hey, what we're going to do in here, we talk about UAP, all that kind of shit. Matter of fact, let's post this. Do me a favor, retweet this. I want to do this as a whole pregame for the Weaponized podcast, because one of my favorite people, I actually reached out to him on LinkedIn, tried to connect with him. Hopefully sometime he kicks back, because that's what I'm trying to do with there, just for the interviews, because anomalous injuries, after effects, UAP med, this is all a thing, right? He's had those. If you've read those books, you understand what his family's dealt with. And I'm listening to it for a second time. I want to get an interview for UAP med. What's up, Red Penny? Want to come up and talk, bro?
Well, and I think too, like just of getting the information out on a wider scale and having this more accepted as something that's legitimately being studied and looked at. Like before, it was just, the stigma was there. Now it's like, oh shit, we better start taking this serious, whether or not we can identify any of them. I think that people now are like, oh, we kind of got to now pay attention for real about this.
Yeah, no more seagull arguments.
I'm trying to find the person who tweeted about. She's a mainstream media. Okay, so Sasha Ingor said, "Why wouldn't Trump administrators officially known about at least 3 Chinese surveillance balloons? A former senior naval intel officer tells me it's likely because of a new interagency effort to identify UAPs. It gives the DoD the ability to identify, better track these balloons."
And honestly, the balloons are actually kind of a serious matter because you don't know what China, we think it's for surveillance, but it could be used for other reasons as well. So
if I was a foreign nation, I would be using this UAP issue because that's even more secret than nuclear technology to blackmail America, because this topic
but
cuts
how would you
through
use
the
that
heart
to
of democracy.
blackmail?
I would be, if I was China, be like, look, I have the information and I have crash retrievals, and I'm going to disclose this information. Or I'm not, and even not even crash retrieval. Let's say, like, if they have good video and everything, they're like, we can disclose this information unless you turn a blind eye towards Taiwan, because this topic, if it explodes the wrong way, which it already is because it's imploding within, it can cut and hurt the American political system, the government, right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. If it's not disclosed properly in like a kind of official manner, it could almost break apart some parts of
Yeah,
America. I see what you're kind of saying.
yeah.
Juan, you want to add something?
I was just listening to you talking about the Chinese thing a little while ago, and I was actually thinking, well, if China, if their most advanced technology for spying on America is still using balloons, then what the hell are the other things that people are seeing? And has America really got to worry about China if all they've got is balloons to spy on them with? I mean, it's not like it's...
Well, the balloons could be used for something more nefarious than just spying. Like it could... I can think of a couple different things it could do.
I think
like an EMP or...
I mean, I can understand that, but I mean, if they're having to resort to using old-fashioned air balloons to spy on America, I mean, they've not really got anything to throw, have they? I mean, and it just it reinforces what other people are saying from the American military, that they have seen these strange objects and they don't appear to be man-made. I mean, I think if China was going to be spying on America in any great way, they wouldn't be sending balloons over. They'd be sending Tic Tacs over, wouldn't they? And they obviously haven't got.
No,
them.
and that's a good point. I think
Hey guys,
it's not Russia.
Guys, can you not hear me? Real quick. Hey, does Weaponized have an actual Twitter? Because I'm making a thread, and here's what I'm going to do. I need help. What I need you guys to do, I'm going to do a pregame, the Weaponized, and I'm going to at people, do a retweet of it and all this kind of stuff. But I need to know, does it have an actual Twitter? Because I've got an
No, it's on Jeremy Corbell's Twitter.
No, I know that. Okay, so what I'm saying is sometimes they make a podcast of their own. And what I'm saying is hopefully maybe we get it. Maybe they come in here beforehand. So my point is that. So what I need to do here is I'm going to do that. Do you guys know that he actually, because sometimes people, like we have a Roswell podcast, we actually have a podcast one. So I'm curious, is it like that or is it just their what? Oh, by the way, Red Panda, my DM limit, I can't answer anybody. My DMs are limited, bro. And I don't know what FOMO means. So do you know what the fucking FOMO means? All right, bro. I'm going to find that and retweet that as that.
Yeah, I guess it's just Jeremy Corbell's. I don't know.
Just if I put at Jeremy Corbell, they don't just have a weaponized Twitter.
Wasn't George Knapp like going on TV or something? Did I hear that as well?
You're not getting it. Hold on. I don't care about any of that. This is what I need to focus on.
Yeah, hold on. I'm gonna post it right now. I got it, bro.
Thank you, Jesus Christ. All I needed was, is there a weaponized one? Because the point is, I'm going to copy that. I'm going to try to develop this thread. Maybe we can get them in here to talk. Everybody wilding out. I thought I was the high-ass one.
Lou, I think maybe Mellon will be tomorrow on mainstream media. If this is coming out, Mellon has to be there.
Okay, remember, guys, I can't DM anyone, so don't DM. I mean, if you do DM me, remember, I just can't DM. But Astral, DM that to me so I can finish my damn.
Yeah, I mean, their Twitter post actually, their Twitter page only has one post. Whoever's doing their Twitter needs to tighten up.
Who's Twitter?
The weaponized.
Okay, damn.
I know. Whoever's doing their Twitter needs to do a little bit better job. They got like one post, and that was the first episode.
Yeah, I bet you they're just using Jeremy's followers because he already has a bunch, so it's kind of hard to get those to transfer over into another podcast.
Yeah. Where'd you guys send it?
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear Jay Stratton. God damn.
Hey, Chase, Astral, take over for a minute. I'm going to find it. I don't know if I'm lagging or not. You guys can't hear me. If I'm being disrespected, I'm going to roll up in the UFO Twitter and start smacking people upside my head. Hey, bro. Hey, the truth, I don't know if you're lagging. You keep stepping on people. Let's try not to do that. We may have to go to raising hands because one of us is lagging and I'm not either getting the concept or I'm just super high on edibles, which is a very real possibility. And I'm not getting the concept. So we got to be careful about stepping on each other.
It might be you lagging, Shane.
Yeah, there is a little bit of lag, dude. I posted the links up top
too. You assholes, don't you ever talk to me like that again. It's never my fault.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Let me
yes,
see
sir.
If this might be better.
So is it already determined that it's definitely Stratton that's going to be on the episode tonight?
Yeah.
Look, I'll tell you this. Bear with me. I'm trying to fix my net too, guys. So bear with me. If something happens, I can text Astral and Chase or whatever. I'm in Portland. I'm, upstairs just kind of hanging out. But here's the thing. UFO Joe tweeted it. I could tell you this. I know it is, in my opinion, and I know Joe knows it is. And the thing is, that's who it is. You could take a clear look and know. If you've done enough reading, research, seen pictures, videos, and I know Red Panda, or anybody that's done this topic knows who the hell that is. And if you take a look at the profile and you know what we're talking about and what's going on, what he's talking about, you get the fact that this is happening. So it's him. I don't know if we should be even talking about it, but you know what I'm going to try to do? If I can finish this thread, try to find weaponized. So I'm going to have Astral Chase take over.
Astral posted the link to Jeremy's thing up top in the space.
Okay, cool. Because I'm going to click it, finish it out. When I do that, everyone retweet and add them as well. Maybe they'll come in here pregame with us here in Portland live from the Jupiter. They're going to get me a beer too. So you guys take care of the house right now. I got to try to figure this internet, maybe find out where a better place is. Let me go ask them. I got the pants on too. I'm upstairs. No, I got pants on. I'm just messing around. Maybe not.
Yeah, man. I mean, we could throw it around to any of the topics. Obviously, the balloon's the big one. We've got weaponized coming up tonight. So any topics that anybody wants to throw around, man.
Hey, Astral, you're wrong. They have 2 tweets on their podcast page.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, never mind. I guess with 2, they're crushing. That's good. That's good. Yo, who is running their social media, though? Because there'd be a really easy, although it is difficult to get their followers from Jeremy over to a podcast, like, it's still doable if the doing is getting done. You know what I mean? But if it's just left like that, ain't nobody going to follow that shit. They need to tweet every day. Maybe like they need to come up with a little schedule. If they're listening, you can schedule tweets. Just write them ahead of time.
Well, bro, we were talking about earlier. I think the Truth, he just left, but he was talking about how, you know, Stratton, this, if he ends up coming tonight, which seems like a good possibility, that he's sort of dictating it, and that it's because of the balloon story, and that this is sort of progressing a little bit more quickly because of the conversation has gotten so big about it, you know?
Yeah, it made major news. So now it's like, oh, now we kind of know what balloons look like and how the government kind of acts around balloons. So
So
it
while he
definitely
was
makes a
planning on
big
going to
difference
like,
when
you know,
UAPs.
I think what he was planning on like contact in the desert or something, he was probably like, oh shit, this just went down. Like, let's go ahead and pull a trigger on this, you know, like move the timeline forward, or you know what I'm saying, and
You
maybe
just
head
wait for an
towards the coast.
opportunity, and the opportunity presents itself. You take it, you know.
So do you guys think Stratton thinks the balloon thing was more than a Chinese balloon? Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't think so personally. I think it's a balloon. I think if anything, it's being used as kind of like, look, we can identify balloons. The government knows how to identify these balloons and can track them. So it's like if there's something that's not trackable and clearly outside of, you know, I think you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I got you. That makes sense. Yeah, at first I was like, oh shoot, what the heck?
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, Chase, very well put, man. I think it's more of this kind of occurred and got so much like viral and so much attention, now that and he was like, oh snap, maybe it's good for me to kind of get the narrative out there now, right now, as opposed to planning on some of these speaking arrangements that I've got. Let me just get to the most popular podcast that's going on right now and get my information out there to everybody who needs the information, so that they can make an informed decision for these bigger decisions that might be happening more quickly. Pac, what's up?
I think that's a very rational take on it. If looking at these, if we're looking at this stuff as like we're reacting to things, then I think that, you know, we as in like the government and this overall disclosure effort or whatever, not that we're part of that, but I don't know if they're just reacting. Like if it was up to me, and I'm sure a lot of people understand like intelligence and stuff, like I would say that the last 3 years and the next 3 years are um, pretty much the most vital time. So you were seeing a lot of effort being made, and I suspect, and this is just my suspicion, I have nothing to go off of, but I would be very suspicious of almost every event that had to do with the sky, and then the government response, and then the public opinion, so the media regarding it. And I would say that this balloon thing, you know, as much as I'd like to believe everything is as it's presented, I think that the efforts being made, the money behind it, the people behind it, the thoughts behind it might actually validate some suspicion that almost all of this stuff is probably part of the thing. And let's just here's an example, right? We have weaponized, and then we have this event, and then we have possibly Jay Stratton being the guest tonight. And the idea is that he needs to react. This is a good opportunity for them to react. But, you know, just devil's advocate kind of thing, like weaponized might have been made for this. Do you know what I mean? Like all the timing of everything is so interesting. And so weaponized might have been made as a platform to help disclosure out for planned type of press stuff like that. Now, I'm not calling conspiracy. I'm just saying like effort to get everyone on the same page is going to involve media and all this stuff. So I'm always suspicious. I have zero proof or evidence. I'm just saying, and I don't think it's nefarious. But I am
Wasn't
suspicious.
Jeremy at like a CNN headquarters with George Knapp like a few days before this balloon thing kind of went out? I mean, that to me kind of is a little bit strange. Kind of makes me wonder if they had pulled some strings, basically. Red Panda, what do you think?
To me, Weaponized and Ryan Graves' podcast, so it's kind of like seem like part of a controlled like dissemination of information, even like the way they're lit and like set up. So I do think that's interesting. One interesting thing I heard about the balloon thing was like, oh, maybe it is a Chinese balloon, but they're like blasted everywhere just to like gauge reaction. And like, I don't know, something about the Maelstrom connection was setting me off, right? That's a lot of us, I bet. And then maybe you guys could give us a little more background on Stratton is. I know he was like big part of Skinwalkers at the Pentagon.
I will. Can you hear me?
That?
Is my internet any better?
Get it, Shane.
Okay. So Jay Stratton was he was in Naval Intelligence. As a matter of fact, I'll post some paperwork, and bear with me, guys. If I speak some wrong shit, it's not because I don't know. It's because I've had RSO, and I'm in Portland and a couple beers. So Jay Stratton was Naval Intelligence, and actually worked his way up to DIA, I want to say. And so if you take the time to read and research the topic, the thing is, I wonder if Axelrod is like a 007 type name, or if that person has been popping up in Ingo Swan's books, in other places, Skinwalker Ranch. And one of the reasons he's super important to this topic for me, if you read this topic, Jonathan Axelrod, while he was at Skinwalker Ranch, he saw and witnessed some shit. Jonathan Axelrod witnessed Dino Beaver and stuff, but the problem is he took shit home. There were after effects for him, his family. They were documented, and so it's an important topic. So I'll post his, actually, if you go in, you type in Jay Stratton, Naval Intelligence, you'll get, like, they print out a federal thing. I'll post that in there, as well as some of the other stuff that I found. Now, he hasn't come out yet, so it's still an assumption that you make, but they have some pictures, and it's a good guess, and almost by looking at him, I could tell. And he was the very first, Axelrod was the very first person that ran, well, Jay Stratton was the first person that ran ATIP before handing it off to Lou Elizondo. So, and please guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jay also Stratton he's still been kind of behind the scenes on doing all this stuff, and I know, well, I don't know. Let me just put it this way. When Lou Elizondo, who 100% I've been behind, and I always will be for what he's done and what he's doing, said someone else was going to be coming out behind the shadows, who do you guys think he was talking about? I know. I don't know if I should really out the person directly, but look, we're talking about, you know what I mean? Does anyone get what I mean? And Red Panda, he's also been super important as far as one of the reasons I'm trying to get him to an interview, the after effects, and as far as the government and like this topic of paranormal and how it's all collectively together, he would know. That name, if it's not a, that kind of name. So does that make any sense, man?
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for that update. I had a feeling he was the Dino Beaver person, but it's pretty interesting that he's the one.
Yeah.
Green Street's excited.
Yeah, I'm trying to get like an interviews because the after effects with him and the family, because it's important to me. I've suffered that. I deal with it. I get it, and it's crazy. So, but it is what it is. So take back over, guys. I got to get me another important beer.
Hey, was the suggestion that the other person coming forward could possibly be Jay Stratton that Lou Elizondo was referring to?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's who he's referred to.
And he's the former head of ATIP.
Yeah, Naval Intelligence. He used to be, he's the former head of ATIP.
So he's got a lot of credentials. He's got a lot of bona fides, and the experience there as like the first person down on that shit. That's very interesting. That would be really, really impactful.
Have you ever heard of the Minute Garrett Goats?
Yes, sir.
All right, bro. This is where it gets crazy. This is why I wonder, right? So is Axelrod like a 007 type name where people keep popping in, and throughout that's who's been dealing with this kind of what do you call it, Hellboy type paranormal topic? Or is Axelrod been the same person? Because this same person, this wealth of information right there. So I've been trying to get an interview with them, right? UAPs, UFOs, paranormal, hitchhiker effects, UAP med, all this kind of stuff. That's why he's important. The wealth of knowledge. He can undam. The problem is he's got so many NDAAs. He can't talk about a lot. But again, you got Eric Davis, a professor of physics. And he walks up to that NDAA, takes a shit on it, but he doesn't break it. people can do that, right? That's what we want him to do, and that's what he's doing. And again, bear with me. Joe thinks that's him. I think that's him. I just don't want to call him out because he's a brother too, and he's also Air Force brother, naval intelligence. I've done my research, and I'm trying my hardest to reach out because the wealth of knowledge, guys, it's important. If you guys get a chance, read Ministeric Goats by Ingo Swann. Not by, is that who? Wait, that's that right, guys? Bear with me. Remember where I'm at. So it's the Ministeric Goats. Who wrote that? I'll put the thing in there anyway. And then you have as well Skinwalkers of the Pentagon, where the name shows up. And then you have, I didn't mention this. And I hope not screw this up.
John Ronson is the author of The Men Who Stare at Goats, and it was authored in 2004.
Thank you very much. And it's about Ingo and this whole thing with Axelrod. Now, you take this one more step. Bryce, and was it Bryce? Yeah, on their Need to Know podcast, they released and they talked about when he was writing Dark Sky, somebody named, I don't think he said Jonathan, but he said Axelrod came in, sat down, and kind of gave him a vibe about what to read or what to write about this topic, right? And gave him a formula on the paper, is what was said. This is the same guy that shows up in all of these. So I'm curious if it's that one dude. Come on, man. The information, no one else has it. Even Lou doesn't have that information and that experience. Like, he's literally an experiencer Lou's an experiencer too, but I'm talking, he's literally like a Bledsoe type, Simney Van type, me type experiencer, but he's also so in-depth on this. I wonder, dude, you get what I mean?
That is wild, yeah, because Bryce Zabel did say that the weird low-key Men in Black encounter he had, that was probably 96 when that show came out. He said that guy named himself Axelrod, so
that's what throws me off.
Them not being the same, but if they are, that's really sus. Not gonna lie.
Red Panda, let me ask you this. That's what throws me off. I don't think he's that much older than me, but he shows up there, that name, right? I mean, that's kind of I don't think, no, because he did naval.
And he's too young to be the other Axelrod from Ingo Swann's days, I think, right?
Yeah, so maybe it's a code name, but bear with me. He has been in long enough to retire through naval intelligence and then go into Air Force Reserve and keep going. Like I said, he's an Air Force brother, so he's been in a minute. You can go in at 17, 18. So I don't know if it's a code name for him or if it's actually him, because again, that name is used in a lot of places. Red Panda, go ahead and mention that again. Where else?
It was in the Ingo Swann book, and then it was in the Dark Skies. Oh, 1 second.
Right on there. And bear with me if it's loud and stuff, guys, because again, I'm doing this live from Portland to Jupiter.
Bryce Zabel said that some Men in Black guys came and called themselves Axelrod when he was making a show in the 90s, Dark Skies, and they said change some things and meet us in a cemetery if you want to go further. And then Bryce Zabel said he got freaked out. It was in his interview he did with Chrissy Newton recently. It's pretty interesting.
He also said on a version of Weaponized when they were talking about, what were they talking about? I don't remember. He actually gave the interview about how it happened when they sat down. Did they talk about the piece of paper in the interview? And when he was telling me, he actually said Axelrod wrote a formula on a piece of paper. Does anyone know any info? If you do, get up here. Let's talk about it.
Oh yeah, I think he wrote out his whole script and it hadn't been out yet or anything like that. He doesn't know how he got that info, but he basically read back his entire script to him and then said this is what you need to change.
No, it was that. But it was also, he wrote down a piece of paper on a napkin, right? And it was something like the script, the formula that solves everything. Light equals it, whatever it was, right? And it was there. He talks about it in his own, and I can't remember. Let me see if I can find that shit, right? He literally says he wrote down this triangle, right? Was it a triangle? Yeah, it was.
Yo, are you talking about the UFO Garage podcast where they were interviewing Lou Elizondo and he drew the triangle, square, circle?
Wait, bear with me. That's there. But there's a reason he drew that, bro. So check this out. They talk about it. It was on Bryce. It was on Bryce's own podcast. And I remember listening to it. And he talks about specifically during this event, the guy, Axelrod, draws a triangle maybe, and then puts a formula. It's supposed to be a UAP, this, that, and it kind of explains everything. And then gives him a date, maybe? It was something wild. I'm like, wait, what? While he was writing
2027?
this script. I don't know. Look it up, guys, because it was while he was writing this script. And I remember specifically, he tells the story. Okay, take it back over, Astro, real quick.
Well, that timeline has moved up, Chase, from the last 3 days. So it's 2024 now.
Good. Better, the better, the sooner. Or the sooner, the better.
I've always thought that the discovery of non-human intelligence was going to come before we get information disclosure about what's really going on, if anything, behind the UFO thing.
Oh, so you think they're going to come out with like bodies and stuff before they say like kind of what's going on?
No, I think that somebody like the Monroe Institute or one of these studies that's studying DMT is going to come out and be like, we've contacted a race of non-human intelligence, and by doing this method, we've been able to communicate with another race somewhere or here in another dimension, as opposed to the government coming out and being like, this is what's going on, and this is the information that we have about a race that we've been in contact with. I feel like there's a race in that going on, and that's interesting to see who's going to win that. Fuck, what's up?
Yeah, I think that Monroe Institute stuff. There's a lot to it. I mean, if it feels like a walking. You know, there's like this conscious stuff that takes a step, and then the physical stuff swings over, takes another step, and it just seems like they were trying to walk both things forward through smaller study groups all the way to technology and whatnot, right? I think Chris Leto's YouTube channel is really good about that. It talks a lot about like those two phenomena and connects them as much as it can. I think that's really good, even down to the observer effect. So I think I think there's going to be a lot of different flavors. So coming out the gate with a craft, you're going to alienate some people. Coming out the gate with non-human intelligence that might be non-physical or at least exist in some other place, but we have proof positive there's interaction going on. That's going to alienate some people. Then the idea is what's going to cast the widest net, and they might have to approach this topic from a lot of different angles. And I feel like that's what's happening. And I could be wrong. I mean, what do you guys think? It feels like they're nudging, one side than the other. And of course, there's like, tertiary levels around those sides. It's not just physical. It's not just conscious. There's, levels in between that blend. But it really feels like they're walking us there.
Hey, check this out. You mentioned Chris Leto. You want to hear some cool shit or see some cool shit? Wait, I got Chase in here. Chase, do you have the ability to do your thing that you normally do that I normally can't do that makes this thread go wild, or you computerless?
No, I can. I'm on my computer, so I can. You want me to like?
Do me a favor, Chris Leto. Go find the podcast. He just did a podcast with a civilian pilot who used to be a military pilot. He worked down in I want to say down in South America. He was doing some stuff down there, but he's civilian. He's the one that records that fucking crazy ass orb from a distance of the plane, and you can hear him talking, wow, this is crazy. And he tells the whole story. And he actually talks about this shit in the story. He says that one of the things that threw him off, that not just the pulsing, that it shined a beam, a light in there. Dude, been there, done that. That's the shit I talk about. That I'm like, it sweeps across the eyes, because again, it's not like a flashlight. It's like a beam, dude. When you see it, you don't see it from the side necessarily, and it's just kind of crazy shit. Post that shit, because it's wild. And the way he tells it and talks about it, and he's talking about the data he's getting, because again, skeptics do this, guys. The first thing they do is they try to dismiss things with here's where the point they're at. Todd, all these other people, right? They're doing the thing they used to say UFO people do, reaching for shit. It's getting to the point that's ridiculous. This guy's kind of recording his dash on the aircraft, recording out, because specifically, this kind of stuff and seeing it. And he's also ex-military, a civilian pilot, trusted to do these very things. And I'm going to apologize now. I kind of wild out a little bit in the thread at Ryan Sprague, because I'm an experiencer, and that shit's what's important to me. And I don't fuck around with that type of shit, right? And the fact that you want to sit here and tell me the very people we trust our nation to are too stupid to tell you what that is, but you want them to drive this billion-dollar plane, protect. Come on, dude. You can't get both. And it's bullshit. We know it's bullshit. What they saw also has backup data. And one of the things that's crazy is now we know with the balloon, which is somebody came in here and popped out truth. I hadn't heard him, but man, he knows his shit. He's a powerful speaker and stuff. Talking about, yeah, he's right, because I've been down here reporting. So we have the ability, like we've known for a minute. So you have these satellites, right? And we've always been talking about scientists throwing away data because, again, they have shit in it they can't explain. Well, apparently now we can track shit like it's nothing and get a pixel, like get a pimple on a dog's ass, right? Now we know that. And so on top of that, there's some other shit unfolding. And I know earlier I mentioned Lou Elizondo had said he's got someone else coming out of the shadows. I knew it was tonight, but I don't, you know what I'm saying?
So I posted a link. Is that the one you're talking about? I can't say it correctly. The Mazel orb?
No, not that one. Close enough. Yeah, it's close enough. It's the one that's shit. It's an orb, but it's actually a pulsing orb at night. Let me see if I can find it. It was literally the one that was it's a civilian pilot, and he's flying, and you just kind of see it.
Okay, so then it's probably this next one I'm going to post.
Oh, yeah, it's probably the second one back, because that's when I watched it. And look, guys, here's something super important. And I'm sorry, I need to say this now. One thing that's important to me, we all get to speak about this topic. I get people get angry. People have been upset about all kinds of things. I've been struggling because I had no place to really talk about it because people wild out. But we're here, and I need people to trust that I don't play bullshit, and I'm not a toxic person, so I won't allow it. But what I also can't do is hate people that people kind of say hate, right? You don't help people with hate. It's like I can't be hateful because, again, I was a piece of shit. Whatever everyone else has done in here, I've done it tenfold, and it makes me feel so horrible when people call each other out for it because do you really think that about me? And does that make sense? I wonder that because I know people like me, and I'm like, damn, I've done way worse. I wonder if they really think that shit about me. So for people to expect me to cast stones when no one's being shitty to me, now I'm not saying toxic behavior is okay. I'm not excusing that. Please don't confuse it. But in these spaces, what's important is everyone gets a voice. Everyone gets to talk. But if you misbehave, you do toxic shit, you say the wrong shit. We all know I don't behave like that, and I won't allow it. But these spaces are too important for experiencers, people who go through it, because there's nothing for us, man. So by telling you can't come here, you can't do that, it fucks people up. I was fucked up by not holding these spaces. I don't want to do that, right? I don't want to have to choose. I want to be here to help experiencers, to talk about veterans, do mental health, to do UAP med, to tell people this shit's real, but we're losing track of that because it was affecting my mental health. So let's focus on this topic. Let's discuss this hardcore. Retweet that shit right now. Like and retweet it. If you want me to keep coming at that back and doing spaces, show me some love.
I think I posted that video you were talking about. Check if it's that one.
Right on, man. And you want to know something funny, guys? I got so many DMs, everyone, and I love it. My family, and here's what's hard. This what sucks. Please bear with me. And I know people are going to hate on me and all this, but I had a problem with a lot of things. The reason I have a problem writing Sprague was because of the way he filters experiencers. But I try not to be toxic, mean, and that's on purpose. I'm here in Portland for a reason, right? My only family, the people I know, the only people I know are from UFO Twitter. I was struggling bad, man. And, I'll be damned, but people from UFO Twitter, the only people from UFO Twitter, reached out, helped out, came. And again, for example, I had some friends DM me, "Are you okay?" Because they didn't get that I was coming up here on a vacation. I needed a break. So they thought I was wilding out and getting wasted, which I kind of am, but not in a bad way. Nothing illegal, just adult good times, right? But that's the only people I have in my life besides direct family, and that's crazy. So it's so hard for me to be like, "You're a piece of shit, you're bad," because no one's been like that to me. I've seen bad shit. But for me, the most important thing is this. If you see bad shit, how do you convince them to not do bad shit? Do you just close them in that area so they can only see and do that bad shit? No. You learn from each other, and that's all I want. I need help with this UAP shit. My damn experience, it's still going right now. These spaces are so important to me because that's the only way I have to talk. I don't have a therapist. So let's focus on this. I'll get off this fucking rant, and Ash will take back over again. I had to plug my thing in.
Was that the correct video I posted?
No, Brood, I don't even know what town I'm in right now. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, that's it.
I thought you were in Portland.
I know. I said I don't know what town I'm in. I'm glad you do, stalker.
I checked every time you tweet, it shows your location.
I know. It's cool, though. I was doing that. Check this out. I've been talking to people about UAP from Portland, just randomly, and then people just popping in. Hey, let's have pizza. Let's do this kind of stuff. And that's what it is, man. That's what shit. I wish the world was more alike. We probably wouldn't have Ukraine and Russia, right? We probably have this topic solved. If more of us who disagreed, we didn't do it in such a fashion that we can't. And I'm not picking sides here. Please don't anybody think I'm doing that. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is this, guys. My favorite people are on both sides, and I feel like shit. That's why I haven't been around. It's like, what the fuck, dude? I need help with this topic, and you guys are making me feel like if I didn't come in here and say this, and it's like, I'm not a hateful person, because when I was a homeless drug addict. So I'm trying to avoid that, and I hope that makes sense to everybody. Now that I've said that, guys, I promise you I'll do fuck more of these spaces. That's why I've been dipping, not doing them. It's been dragging on me. But after tonight, after this whole weaponized, I'm down. Let's do it. So Astro, please take over. I won't talk about this shit anymore because it's only UAP, Bigfoot, paranormal from this point on. Nothing else. What's up?
Oh, well, dude, I think you're talking about stuff that's really important in just a wider acceptance of the phenomenon to pay attention to it. And I think the recent stuff that's been happening with the balloon is a conversation starter, man, to like bring the attention bigger of like, yeah, that was identified very quickly. But I think the bigger picture is like, this has been going on for a while. Whether or not it's been China every single time is highly doubtful. There's some other stuff that we haven't identified with all of the technology that we have. And I think it's good to be able to reference these credible people that are coming out. And tonight we might get another piece that's very credible as well. Logan, what's up?
Oh, sorry, man. I dipped out on the conversation when you guys were talking about Stratton earlier. So I don't know what you guys were just talking about to not talk about. But yeah, so I know Stratton is someone that we've had well, I don't know if but I know I have at least. He's been like my number one guess for who Axelrod is, right? But I don't know. I was going to wonder if Shane thought that Axelrod was also Dick Butt. I mean, he probably isn't, but he's a good candidate, that's for sure. I wonder what you guys thought about that.
Why would you ask me that? But I'll tell you this. Listen, dude. I'll say this much. All I can say is this. We're friends. But no, someone else thought that too. No shit. And it's a good point. Someone else did, but I'll say no. But he is who he says he is. No fucking around. And that's all I'll say. As far as, I know he says he's anonymous, but when I say where he worked, that kind of shit, whatever he says, he ain't fucking around except for to throw people off slightly. But no, it's not that. I actually thought that too. That's good pickup, Logan. How the fuck did you pick that up? How? I thought only I knew that and one other person, that they were picking up the signals.
Don't you know Logan's a vampire? He's done this for years.
No, I'm serious. Someone else tipped me off, Logan. That's an impressive dig, and it made sense to me, but it's not. That's all I can say, because, again, that's not what this shit's about for me. A good fucking pickup, because that's actually what I thought, and it's not. Because later on, I ended up befriending that kind of bullshit, so it's like, and that's all I want to say, because literally, dude saved my life. He's going to get a shadow box from me. When I was about to take my fucking own life because of this subject and the experience and all that, him and Pliska and a couple others reached out like, bro, what's going on? Are you all right? I'm like, no. So, yeah, he's a good buddy. But I thought the same thing because while I was his friend, I'm like, that's what this is, but it's not.
Dick Butt is Eric Davis.
Dick Butt is actually, if you look up, have you ever seen the guy who plays not Knight Rider, but the bad version of Knight Rider?
Hasselhoff?
Yeah. That was a deep cut. You knew that shit, bro. You knew it was Hasselhoff in all like dark makeup. I'm embarrassed for you, Astro. You're old as fuck.
Kent, did you want to add something?
Oh, it's just I just think it's interesting that there's all these supposed heavy hitters that are hanging around in spaces, and we don't know, or I don't know who any of them are, but I think it's at least good that if these guys are in the spaces, at least they're hearing the conversation and they know we're trying to, sort of find a way for everyone to find out a bit more about what's going on. I think it's a good thing.
Bro, I think they need to get on Twitter Spaces.
Wait, Astro, I didn't mean to do that thumbs down, bro. I was eating something.
I was going to cry, Shane.
Good point. I mean, good point. I meant to do thumbs up. I did not mean to thumbs down, bro. And thanks again for the $500 for Wounded Warrior. I know my mouth is full.
Hey, you're all good, mate. No, I thought, what did I say wrong when I saw the thumbs down?
I feel like they need to get on Twitter Spaces. I think it's a good way to get the message out there, or any information new breaking that you have, than any of these avenues that would take, months, weeks to compile the story that they're trying to, when you can just jump on a Twitter space and announce exactly what you're going to right away to a crowd of people who are paying attention every day to what's going on.
Just a quick one. I think these guys, I'm a bit surprised they don't, because guys like Jeremy and they're confident guys. George Knapp, Jeremy, all these guys are really confident. They know how to deal with the media. And I'm just, a little bit disappointed, sort of, that we don't get to get some of these guys on and just have a bloody normal everyday discussion with them,
Here's the thing, though. Most of these guys have NDAAs, right? So what we're working on is, hopefully, as this is unfolding, tonight's Weaponized should have a very awesome individual. And Logan, you were fine saying the name and stuff. I just didn't want to. I mean, it's all guesses, right? We're all just shitting in the dark here. I think I can guess what it is, but this is amazing shit, right? Like I said, what kind of shit I'm curious. Anyone here can go out there and talk about what kind of stuff do you think he knows that was a part of, that he can kind of come out about? Not a lot of people know who he was, who he is. I know Logan does, and other people. I'm curious if anyone else does, and what cases that he's been a part of. Go ahead there, Tup.
I know him and his wife had experiences, like hitchhiker experiences. They had sightings of things that made them question what reality was. I mean, it seems super scary, if you know that story. And I just think that anyone in that position would probably invest a lot of time and a lot of resources into solving that thing, because it happened to them. So my guess would be that this person knows a ton about the high strangeness and the hitchhiker effect. I'd like to hear that.
Good point. Let me talk about the hitchhiker effect, guys. Hey, Chase, I need you to do me a favor. Look, something that's really important to me besides my podcast, my multiple ones. I've got Military Witness to UAP, Roswell UFO Symposium, as well as Mindscape, is UAP Med, because after effects is a real thing. Yeah, I get people, even if you don't want to agree, that physical effects, seeing something that shouldn't exist is going to fuck some people up, especially if someone like me who's already been dealing with it. And trying to explain that to people who are supposed to be doctors became more traumatizing and harder than anything. So again, this is a guy that knows where the bodies are buried. And you had mentioned something specifically, Axelrod in the book. So, right, this is why I keep going back to Keel's theory, Fillet. This is all intertwined. Bigfoot, the whole phenomenon. He talks about the hitchhiker effect. He specifically mentions seeing what? Has anyone read the book? Does anyone know what, when he went home, not him, when he got home, well, he saw something at Skinwalker, but when he got home, his family saw something, his kids and his wife. But that something was also mentioned in the original Skinwalker book, that two scientists both saw through binoculars coming out of a portal. But that's something that's also a Michigan dog man, that's something that we would consider these type of paranormal things. Does anyone else not think this is connected? This guy literally talks about these effects. And I also will say, please correct me if I'm wrong. The reason I'm curious about the after effects, Didn't his wife develop, please correct me wrong, because I hope that I'll be wrong, cancer or something along those lines? He got sick or something along those lines with all these orb incidents? Because the kids had blue orbs flying around the room. They were seeing the dog man. And that's why Cindy Van talks about the orbs are bad, stay the hell away. But I always record them and I don't even know. Anybody else got a thought on this shit?
Well, and it might just be the orbs he saw, too.
Ooh, good point, bro. And can you guys make sure you correct me or tell me, hey, you're because again, I'm in Portland, just a vacation, chilling out, right, doing this. So make sure you tell me if you can't hear or whatever, because I don't want to have to repeat myself. But maybe the orbs he saw, that's important. So do you think per person that they're picking and choosing who they're going to harm and stuff like that? Or do you think it's, now bear with me, Mind Escape is good about saying this. It's how you take it and how you approach it. Do you think that's reflected? Is that a thing?
That's honestly a good question, because it could be they're you know, only reflecting kind of what they want you to see. So if they want you to see something negative, they'll reflect that. And if they want you to see something positive, they'll reflect that. So I don't know. It could go either way for me.
Well, what I mean by that is this. Because I've always questioned this. And this is important. Just bear with me. Because again, I record orbs all the time. Not a lot. I mean, not a lot. A lot. Like for 3 years, I still am. My family does as well. They see them by themselves, record them by themselves. It's crazy shit. But finding out later, it's an area that's Yakima Valley is known for that. But you have people like Cindy Van who take this experience. He talks about in interviews. He's not religious, but he has every freaking religious, you would say, device by his bed because this experiences this phenomenon. He's scared shitless, and I don't blame him because I know that probably happened. And then you have people like Chris Bledsoe, whose book is coming out shortly, is the other end of the spectrum. And it's almost a total Judeo-Christian religious experience. And I don't doubt that is happening. And then here I am just kind of interacting 60 feet at the closest or, farther. But everywhere I go for the last couple of years, there, recording, seeing them with people, whatever, and nothing. I'm just kind of like, what the hell is going on? My trauma comes from the fact that I didn't think this shit existed, and I thought humans were fucking with me. So it's a total, do you think the experience is actually giving you feedback on how you're interacting with it? Or do you think it's just picking favorites, like saying, hey, jackass, I'm wasted, I'm going to mess with you? Anybody?
Well, I mean, the evidence says that, people under like kind of a lot of stress can have these experiences, and people in different states of consciousness, different states of mind can have these experiences. It seems like almost that there's a lot of stuff happening around us at all times, almost like the way we have like an internal world, right? Like biologically even, right? Not even talking about our consciousness, but we have a ton of stuff moving around in there that's just doing its thing, right? And we're having this conscious experience that's totally independent of it, right? But it's part of us, but we don't see it. We don't feel ourselves moving around. And there might be a ton of stuff out there in the plasma of space that makes that, and I don't mean outer space, I mean the plasma of our atmosphere and stuff, where there's these different things moving around, reacting, feeding and moving, like a whole different biosphere or whatever. And I think sometimes I guess what the evidence tells me is that sometimes people under, a lot of stress or in different states of consciousness, their mind starts to process the things that are coming into the eye differently. And maybe there's a lot of stuff coming in that we are not processing, but our eyes are able to see. It's our brain that's deciding what it is that it's going to process from those inputs. And from Donald Hoffman's work, we know that the brain's job is to filter things out, not to tell you information, because there's so much coming in at all times. And in that process, we couldn't see blue for a long time, supposedly. Bentoff says, and this is known, there's only like 4 or 5 colors mentioned in the Bible. They didn't know what the color blue or green was. They were talking about gray and different shades of different like things. So, it was there, but we didn't, and our eyes never evolved. They have the mummies of times when people, before blue was even, there was a word for it in some cultures or a pigment for it. Yet they had the same eyes we have. So it was just our brain.
There are tribes, bro. There are tribes who have 30 variations of blue because
there's a tribe
between them.
There's a tribe in Africa who doesn't have a word for blue. So for them, it's all different shades of green. And that affected their language, and that affected the way they saw green. So they found out that if you have a word for something, your brain processes it different. So they gave these guys vision tests, and because they couldn't differentiate green from blue that much, it actually allowed them to differentiate more shades of green than normal people. So they gave them a color wheel, and they said which color green is off, then is like separate than these other colors. 90% of people on Earth would never know, maybe 99%. But this tribe was able to always pick out which shade of green was, and it was imperceptible to normal people who have the
can
word
go
for
back
blue.
as well, and before we get over to Logan, you're next. You can go back as well and look through Arabic and see that not only that, but these colors, there's full spectrums of colors. People call like not just green, this green, this green, this green. So go ahead, Logan. I gotta go down an elevator. So Astro, take over real quick.
For sure, man. Go ahead, Logan. What's up, man?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I was gonna say, there's something like John Keel said that I thought Shane would be into, is that he said like the mind is unquestionably involved in many of the UFO and psychic experiences, and very probably in a number of our more bizarre monster sightings. We only see what the phenomenon wants us to see, and we only remember what it wants us to remember. So, I mean, if this is eventually proven, then a large part of our descriptive data is completely false and worthless. And all the charming stories we have recounted here do not mean a thing. That's what Keel said.
Bro, I love you. Thank you for the segue into
Right?
Keel.
Yeah.
So check this out,
The way
my
they
brother.
change heart is Keel.
Oh, bro. So check this out. Actually, Keel's got some pretty dark thoughts he never went posted. But on top of that, I'm going through the 8th Tower right now again for the second time. He talks about the psychic connection. But this is important. If you connect Jacques Vallée, you connect Keel and all these thoughts. And I'm not saying anything is right. Each person's interaction on this with this subject and what they see and how they interact based on the person and how it has to interact with them so that it can, right? Maybe the person has trauma and that's the negative part that affects the brain, so they do interact it. It calls them. Maybe that's it. Maybe someone's taking a medication, they have a different biochemistry, a different development, and that's why it's not being special. And call it hybrid, call it whatever you want, because there are theories about that kind of stuff as well. But Keel talks about, man. Hey Chase, do you know where that's at? If you look at my page, it's John Keel did not want these papers released, so I'll put them in the thread, right? And he talks. It's what the reason he doesn't want it released is it's what his real thoughts on the subject are. And I promise you, if you read it, it's dark. It's essentially, and this is some breadcrumbs for you guys. Lou Elizondo mentions this a couple different times, right? He talks about a battle, a war. John Keel literally talks about a war between factions, and they're all trying to manipulate us DNA through our societies, religiously, things like that. Not one, not two, and it's a dark, dark place. So actually, I better find that shit, Chase. You may not know where it is. You're too young to be reading that shit, and I don't want to upset you. So take back over after, and we'll get a beer.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
well, I
I'm
think
looking through your page, but
it's a deeper thought to behind the intentions of everything. And Eric Davis and Vallée talk about a system interaction as well of it overall adjusting to our society, and it is behind the thought too of like how we've seen flying saucers, and then it's progressed into orbs, and then these paranormal experiences, and just pointing towards the historical changes that have gone through everything. But I think too, like they're also, I mean, there is a lot of data and stuff that points to that. But I think also there's, to me, there's a couple things that I think are happening on an overall scale, is just like we're able to observe, and there might be a plenty of races or beings that are interacting with us that are just exploring our physical reality through us, and we're able to observe it or catch it through these physical spaceships or things that we're observing in the sky. But then there's also this metaphysical or paranormal aspect to it, where people are actually interacting with the beings behind this, and we're getting a lot of experience or data with people that are having a lot of these experiences with beings that are described on a very big scale. So it's a vast number of things that I think are being explored here. But yeah, Keel is definitely somebody who has done a lot of research and is good to start out with if you're looking at the phenomenon to start. Kent, what's up, dude?
Yeah, I don't think we can underestimate what we call the observer effect. Just a quick thing I've mentioned before. You know, when we do investigations, we can have 10 people see exactly the same event at exactly the same time. But when we go and do the investigation, we'll get 10 different stories about what happened. And I think the same thing we've got to keep. It's like this intuitive, formative part of our consciousness where it doesn't really matter what we're seeing or what we're thinking about at the time. It has a direct effect on how we actually see it, how we engage with it, the feelings we get from it. And I think when we're trying to get lessons from all the experiences, the Bledsoes and the Semivans and all those sort of guys, I don't think we can just take it as gospel that it means 100% what they got from it, because it's only their interpretation of the experience. It's just for thought.
That's a good thought. And guys, if I raise my hand, the reason is because I'm traveling right now, kind of little vacation. So again, if it's loud, you can't hear me, please tell me, interrupt me. And the reason I raise my hand, I want to lag. So thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. And we'll go with next, but real quick, guys, retweet this. Let's get people in talking about it. The only thing we're talking about here, again, I'm a Keel fan. Anything paranormal is related to this topic, but we're keeping it on that. We're not disrespecting, talking about people who aren't in here or bringing anything up about that. Because again, I don't play around. This is an experiences type space because I'm experiencing. A lot of you guys have experiences. We want to talk this. We want to get answers. It's hard to get answers, but everybody hates each other. So go ahead. Was it? I think it was Logan next, and then two.
Yeah. So on like the whole thing about so there was this Reddit post, right, from this guy that made a post about his dad, and just kind of like a comment he made about I guess like the disillusionment of like the UFO phenomenon's self-serving control mechanism. He wrote that he said, "This is blah blah blah. A good question that I feel comfortable in giving based on my dad. My father investigated UFOs for 10 years for NICAP. He was a former military officer who saw two in his lifetime and why he was drawn to the phenomenon. Before he died, I asked him what conclusions he had about it, having been familiar with hundreds of cases. He said to leave it alone, that the subject is imponderable and probably designed to be that way. And kind of disappointing to say, but the phenomenon wishes to remain unknown, and we have no choice in the matter." So,
Bro,
yeah, I think the way we're studying it, we need like maybe a new like looking glass, I guess.
amazing. I agree 100,000%. I actually think I read that too. And I agree because with Keel, with delay control system, you'll never know. I always say one thing. We can say we're disclosing shit, but we're not disclosing shit till it decides it's gonna disclose. It's whatever this is, however many it is, it can stay hidden at all times, or it can show itself. Do you think these crashes are just it can't drive? I posted a P research paper that talks about, oh my god, the number of crash retrievals and bodies this country has probably got. Let's just say, guys, it's nothing like you think. Roswell, Aurora, there's one in Nebraska. There's 1884 in Nebraska. You don't think I'm kidding? Not just the paper says anything about it. You can actually go do some investigations, find some papers that talk about it. Then there was also, you have crashes that were not just, was it Brazil? Well, I'm going to contact them about one. There was a specific crash there. Supposedly a body was dropped into the sea. And you keep going. I started looking. Some of these crashes has 12 bodies. So to think that we don't have it, here's the crazy part. If it sits right, this paper I found, and I'll try to post it. It's on my thread somewhere, but I stumbled upon it for like 3 white papers. And P Research actually has a shitload of stuff about this, right? And there's one that actually has a document in there, and you'll see W. Cooper. Does anybody know who W. Cooper is? That was one that reported to. There's also Naval Intelligence. He wrote a book. The book's pretty. I used to think it was a fucking conspiracy book. Behold the Pale Horse. Anybody ever read that? So that book was by William Cooper. You see on this paperwork by some of these crashes, W. Cooper, W. Cooper. I'm like, what the? That can't be that way. I bet you it is. You go down, there's that little, on this same paper with some of the legit stuff with different bodies. I'm talking some of these crashes. Roswell, I'm not shitting you. So you had Roswell, but if you look, it was a New Mexico flap. People talk about that area for a reason. And during that time frame, there was like 6 crashes, 10, 12, 13 bodies. Aztec, Roswell, another place there, right? The Canyon. Before that, there was a place called something in Nebraska. Then you know about the Aurora one. Well, you keep going. At one point in this letter, it says 2 entities went home with Air Force officers. I say, wait, what? 2 entities went home with Air Force officers. And you can go through this paperwork, and I've got it on my thread somewhere, and it kind of talks, which kind of led me to some of these other places, like the different alien species and things. All this is real. And you take Keel, and like you had mentioned, Logan, Keel delay, I think it's all a control system. It's hard to think this is crashing when it can do, it's obviously got control of gravity and some kind of a drive, because space-time doesn't, it doesn't have to go faster than the speed of light. It's either interdimensional or something along those lines, because again, we're missing something here. It can be ultra-terrestrial, and maybe that's one of them. But man, I'll be disappointed if it's only ultra-terrestrial lizards drinking our blood. So who was next, man?
Man, I think it was Third Eye. Or Top Pac, what's up? One of y'all. Shit.
No, Third Eye can go. I haven't heard from him at all. I'll just go after him.
What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going? How's everybody? So
Chilling, man.
I'll just nice. I'll just chime in quickly because I'm curious to hear what Chupacabra is gonna say. But yeah, there is definitely a long lineage of history when it goes back to this phenomenon of the UAPs and the UFOs. My topic that I always talk about is our ancient past and civilization. There's a recorded history, and you don't even have to look at something as very controversial as the story of the Anunnaki and the Nephilim. You can go back to something as more recent times, which in comparison to what I usually talk about would be the Inca, the Aztec, and the Mayans, in which they depict a lot of extraterrestrial beings, if you will, which exists in the United States as we know it today, but back then the North American continent, if you will. All the tribes, all the indigenous tribes of the Americas, which is North, which includes Canada as well, Central, South America, they all talked about these, they depict or they have oral traditions passed down of these entities. And I think throughout history, as we come closer to what's modern time, if we talk about what's modern time, so let's just say 1940, Roswell and up, World War II, Germany, and then modern times, all of that, the story of the UFOs and the UAPs, it does seem to change. There's not a digression, it's more of a progression, but there's a divergence in terms of the classification. So originally, I believe that we probably have, not probably, I believe firmly that we have had visitation. But as history progresses, we're starting to notice that there is a huge discrepancy in the occurrences of these events happening. So I think more along the lines of what you guys said, it's more than just one type. I do believe that there are extraterrestrial entities which are, maybe biological form like us from another world, solar system, or galaxy even, which is, it's very feasible if you've been given just 1 billion years head start. It would be totally make sense to have like a type 3 or more civilization that traveled here. But I think we're starting to see that maybe the phenomenon isn't exclusive to biological life. It could be interdimensional, and it can definitely be maybe supernatural. And we can't rule out the possibility of some type of AI meets robotics. That's probably the most feasible way to travel through the universe without having to modify or really go head on into the technological aspect of preserving life through a vessel to travel, because it's a little bit more complicated than the stories Like, you know, the movies always portray like Star Wars, you know, hyper travel or traveling through, you know, hyper speed, I guess. So I think that we have to start to look at this and classify it under, is it extraterrestrial, as in, you know, within our universe? Is it an interdimensional, or is it a supernatural? I think what we're seeing is definitely a combination of all the above, not just one. So that's my 2 cents.
Real quick before I let Astro take over for a minute. I love that. And people, if you keep making fun of me in DMs, because you know I can't DM, I'm going to kick your butts. But anyway, thank you very much. I can't DM anybody. So again, I'm sorry, guys, I can't DM you. But people talk about this. Here's one of the things. They say it can't be extraterrestrial because of time frames, right? We currently are discovering elements, right? There's no saying that there are other planets that have elements that are natural, that are heavier, that we haven't even discovered in the Hadron Collider, right? Maybe they don't even have to use jet propulsion. Maybe they pick up this whatever rock type thing, right? And that shit levitates them. Because again, I know people think shit of Lazar, but what's he talking about with element 51? Maybe it's not, it's actually element 51 that we've developed. Maybe that's a name, but just picture something that causes you to bypass that. Now, if you have control of gravity, the one thing you control is space and time. Why is that? Because it's all the same. A gravitational bubble could be every drive, any of these type of things, right? What that allows you to do is you're not breaking that speed barrier. Locality is allowing you to just move at a snail's pace. And you're still moving at that, breaking that speed right in front of you. By squishing and moving the back in front of you, you're doing that shit. So if we can think of it, I'll be damned if the far advanced civilization can't do it. Now, the thing that really pisses me off, people are like, well, maybe we're the first. Are you kidding me? How many? Shit, we may not be the first on this planet. It's kind of silly to think the planet hasn't chewed up in that amount of time. You know, what if when we had the first super freaking I was going to say continent, right? Was it Pangea? What if then there was some form, died out? You don't think by then between you had the basalt flats in India, you have Washington, you know, the different destructions, that shit's not covered. And I'm not saying hologram Hancock's right, but you got to be open to this shit. And I'll kind of shut up because I think it was.
Well, and I want to actually quickly add to that, Shane. Like there was, I think, a article I read recently that there was like a 1.2 million old obsidian knives. So like that's long before humans are around. So it doesn't even need to be as far back as like Pangea. It could be just, you know, a million years ago there was some advanced civilization here.
Can I tell you a little
It's just an interesting
fact?
thought.
I tell you a fun fact. Obsidian knife, I do believe, was is what Game of Thrones. That's what he used for dragon glass. That's what his interpretation of dragon glass was, right? So I think those obsidian knives that he had read about, he utilized as this form of far advanced shit that was lost, right? So think about that. And it's funny because if you think about it, you got Peter, what's his name, and Tom DeLonge. They got these books, right?
Lavenda.
Thank you very much, Lavenda. And they're writing these books, fictional in fact. There's a reason for it. And other people do that. They take down some history, and if you read those books, man, it gets wild. So, did I interrupt you, Logan? Or did you get to talk? I'm gonna let Astro take back over for a few minutes.
No, you didn't interrupt me. I interrupted you, bro, just to tell you his name.
Brother, and that is his name. Thank you. Check out the books because again, it's not about, hey, this guy's right. But I have a hard time for anybody, experience or anything, to tell me it's this when you don't know the spectrum, right? If it's this, then why did this happen over here? Or if it's this, why did have anybody in here heard of the book Masquerade of Angels by Dr. Kate? Oh God damn, come on, Shane. Anyway, Turner. Is it no?
Carlos Turner.
Carla Turner. That's right. So Masquerade of Angels. There's several other books she has, but it's some dark shit, man. They come, they pretend to be Judeo-Christian figures for a reason, a manipulation, which who else talks about that? So I very recommend, if you get a chance, there's some really dark work, but John Keel's got that thing I posted. Oh, I put that in the nest. So if you guys check the nest right now, John Keel specifically, and this is real, said, do not release these papers. These are for researchers. I don't want these thoughts on the subject out there. I put it up in the nest. It's pretty dark. You start thinking, Carla Turner talks about that. And then you got future human hypotheses. You have Lou Elizondo, who drops breadcrumbs about some kind of a shadow war, and tell me if that's not connected. So go ahead, Astral, and then I'll be back in a minute.
Go ahead, Pac, and then I got a question for the panel.
Logan said earlier that this might require a new field of study, a new kind of science, and I totally agree. And I just and then Third Eye was talking about history. You know, we go back into deep history, or we can go into like, you know, earlier, whatever. But I think it should be noted that science was actually started in the 1500s, 1600s by Rosicrucians, and they developed this idea that the more they studied stuff and kept notes, and that they could prove through experiments or whatever, and testing, that they'd find more truths, right? And Rosicrucians are kind of like a private order that it's like a belief system that you adopt, and then a lot of people do and did. And this led to a lot of very interesting stuff. Obviously, science and the scientific method led to everything we're doing right now. So it's a very significant development. And it kind of peaked right around the 1800s, and then through Rosicrucianism again, in a lot of different programs, through a lot of different efforts, through academia and whatnot, it got pushed in again through I would say the electromagnetic revolution that we have, and all this, you know, all this technology that we have now. So Jacques Vallée is a known Rosicrucian, and Invisible College is a modern kind of a public face of these efforts. And he developed and helped develop the internet. And here he is at the forefront of this topic and this idea. And I think it should be noted, this idea that we might need to develop a new field of study, a new type of thing. I think that's being presented to us every day. And whether that thing is being developed by academia and people maybe like Gary Nolan and so forth, like maybe that is being developed, but it should be studied, I think, and expected. And if it's not being spearheaded by known groups, it's something that we as ufologists should consider developing a higher level of UFO studies using the scientific method plus things, you know, doing something else that might bridge the gap between consciousness and physical sciences, which I think some would consider spiritual science, which again, this would lead you right back to this concept of Rosicrucianism. So I think there's some answers there for some of this stuff that you don't have to go and speculate. You can just look at what they're about and the kinds of things they've done. So yeah, that's it. Check into that stuff.
So I lied. I'm going to make one statement. Here's one thing that bothers me about all of this currently. We're talking about weaponized, and I'm so awesome and glad that weaponized happens because they talk to veterans and things like that. So for people to be such disingenuous fucks about this topic, I want to say fucks because I'm an adult and I'm at a resort. So the point is, so you're going to tell me that these people that you trust to protect this nation, to see and spot the things that protect you and give you the freedoms to talk this bullshit with no unchecked, right? You're going to sit here and say you trust them to do that, but you don't trust them to identify this shit up front. That really kind of irks me off, because not only that, we know God dang well there's data. And that data is not just backed up by that. You got Ryan Graves, you got people coming out currently tonight that are talking about these subjects, right? And it starts to begin to look, it's slow. I'm curious, before Logan goes, does anyone else think it's starting to look the opposite, like what UFO people used to do? Oh, everything's a UFO. They're literally grasping at straws at this point for this, it's that, and they're being so disingenuous and kind of like, you know, the veteran thing. I don't get, you know, they're telling you it's this, it's this. You know, I understand misidentifications, but they're not saying it if they don't know it's not backed up by some kind of sensor data, right? Because if that sensor data would have corrected them right there or someone there, okay, they never would have went with the story. So to sit there and act like they don't know there's something, they're stupid. Go ahead, Logan.
You there, Logan?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I wonder what like you guys thought about this, like about like I don't know, not necessarily like direct technology transfer, like in that book, The Day After Roswell, where he says, you know, this crash retrievals has been like responsible for like all our modern technologies, pretty much. But like even if you go back even before like modern day technologies, like you go back to like Einstein or Tesla. I mean, they claim all their answers came to them from like, you know, the ether. I mean, they didn't say the word the ether, but they just came to them, right? They weren't like their own ideas, or even like people like Parsons. He said like, you know, his ideas for all this rocket technology came to him from I don't know, I don't remember what he said exactly, but it was the same thing, like pretty much like the ether. It just came to him.
Hey, Alvin, you can't do this, but anybody else that posts in the thread, what some of those technologies are supposedly in that book. Thank you for bringing that up, because that is a good point. I will send you a credit for a free copy of, you can get Skinwalkers at Pentagon or whatever. So do that now, but you got to retweet as well. So thank you for bringing that up. Go ahead, Logan.
Oh, actually, I'm going to do that right now too. But also, yeah. So, but like, not even like I was saying, like, not even today's technologies. Like, what about like all throughout history? Like, since the beginning of like mankind. Like, you think we got the idea to make fire from the ether as well? Did we get the idea of like how to make DMT? Out of combining these specific plants from the
Yeah,
ether and stuff like that.
I think
So I mean, like, have we been like guided all along by the phenomena?
Genius. I think so too. And let me correct that before I go broke. The first person who says that, not everybody who says that. You're right, dude. That's the question. Is it chicken or egg? So let me ask you this. These people who know me know my favorite case is space pancakes. Or if you take the supposedly hoax solved 1884 flaps of airships, right? Ask yourself this. We didn't have airships then. So what came first? Did we see those, someone see those, interact with them? These things, bring it specifically. Think how odd this is. Come on board, basically, without talking. Look at this, see this, do this. Get them out, right? What's the first thing that happens? The government comes to them, investigates, talks to them. Yeah, this thing had this here, did this. It went up in the air like this. So are they literally giving us information, manipulation, that whole control system? Is that what's going on? Are we seeing that? And that's how this stuff's being developed? But then in Roswell, these different crashes, supposedly, there's some technologies, and Logan probably knows them. You're banned from doing that in here. Just retweet for him then. He knows them apparently. So there's technologies we supposedly got from these crashes and stuff like that. And that's kind of what I'm shooting at. So put that in there. The first person who comes up with the right one, I will give you a credit, not everybody else. And thank you, Logan, for bringing that up. Go ahead, Astro.
On that topic about the transfer of knowledge, this is one of the things that I always talk about, especially with the archaeologists and the historians and other academic professionals in this field, which I have a stance on that, where I firmly believe if we look out throughout history and what we consider modern civilization, anything that's really, I'd say about 20,000 years and on forward, we look at progression, and in terms of logarithmic progression, which is just, like I've said this a couple times in the past, it's starting at 0 to 100. If you look at history, the one thing that's very evident is that through times of turbulent times, you get an advancement of technology. So the last time we saw an explosion of technology through one of the, I guess, greatest inventions possibly in the last century was the rise of computing and also rocket propulsion, which, if I'm sure everybody in this channel or chat right now knows about how sophisticated the Germans were. World War II was a war fought by Germans on both sides. The Germans literally were at war with themselves. The Germans were on the German side, and then on our side, Einstein being one of the defectors, who he himself gets a lot of credit for all the things that he worked on. But if we go back further into the past, what we see is a perfect example, and this is the one that I like to talk about because it's more what I know, or I guess I like to focus on, is the transfer of knowledge in civilization. The clear example of this is always I use is look at the pyramids of Giza, for example. If there's nothing on this planet that doesn't scream, hey, who the F built this? It would be those pyramids. We look at them, and most people that go to Egypt, they stand there and they look at it, and they observe it, they're mesmerized, but that's it. It's a surface value notion. But the deep thoughts is, well, how did we build this? I had an excellent conversation a couple of weeks back with someone, and basically my proposition on this is that I believe the same concept applies for the UFOs. The first time that we ever had any depiction of any flying apparatus comes in the times of Leonardo da Vinci. A lot of people don't know, but Leonardo da Vinci was one of the first, or probably is documented as the first individual to illustrate and draw an actual apparatus that was considered for flying. Yes, there's a lot of arguments that the Incas and the Aztecs had these little flying vessels that they built and they look like birds. But in terms of actual schematics, it wasn't a schematic. We have to credit it to Leonardo da Vinci. He also depicted a lot of other things like a tank, a submarine, and etc. Well, no one talks about the 2 years prior before he came out and he started working on these great artworks, which now everyone knows and appreciates. But before that, he disappeared into a cave for 2 years. No one saw him. When he came back out, and this is an actual diary that he has that you can look online because it's been declassified or disclosed, for lack of a better word, where he specifies that he went into this cave and he found these entities where he was beamed on a ship and he observed planet Earth from above. And in the diary, he talks about this. You have to read it in Latin because that's the language that it's actually written in. But if the translations state that, and it also has a lot of depictions of these very extraterrestrial origin looking individuals. So that's an interesting correlation. And I think throughout history, if anything, we've learned is that what is inception, the term? Inception is basically planting an idea and someone else comes to that realization, right? Well, throughout history, we've had this. We've had UFOs have existed as long as mankind has been around. Look at all the paintings. If you go to the Louvre Museum, for example, there's countless of paintings with UFOs. You have the Virgin Mary in the anointment when the so-called angel comes down and tells her that she's going to carry the Son of Christ, and you have a UFO depiction there. You have it throughout various works of arts. So the UFO phenomenon, whenever you have someone that tells you, "Oh, that's just a coincidence." Oh, okay, sure. So Roswell could very well be we have to think outside the box and think maybe Roswell was a coincidence. Maybe it was a hoax and it was planned. I don't believe that, but let's just say that's for the sake of the argument, right? Well, okay, so sure. Roswell was not legit. Okay, well, what about all these paintings that have UFOs that are painting in the 13, 14, 1500s? What of all the accounts from 4,000 years ago from the indigenous tribes talking about extraterrestrials? Look at the pyramids in Mexico, Tuxtlan, which literally has depictions of spacecraft traveling upwards. Everyone's seen the famous individual paintings or the depictions, right? And look at other parts of the world that talks about this. You go to Peru. I mean, Peru is just the indigenous oral translations are that Peru was built by entities not from this world. What does that mean? It doesn't mean they're coming from, Orlando and Florida. It means they're not coming from this planet. So the dismissal of UFOs and UAPs is for someone who's dogmatic, who's lazy, and can't comprehend the idea that we are in a solar system, in a universe that's at least 15 billion years old. Think about the logarithmic progression of 15 billion years. That means that Earth would only be 1/4 that tenure of time. So if you had another planet in the galaxy, in the universe that had a 2/4 of our history, they could easily travel interstellar and make it here. And I just think it's very, very ignorant to believe that UFOs and UAPs are not a real thing. I don't understand why people would say anything like that. And
Yeah, I think you're in a safe room in here. We all
real quick, guys.
roughly have those
Interrupt
beliefs.
again. I know I said I was done, but I actually posted up in the nest. So I gave you guys the link as well as the crash retrieval paperwork, and I want you to have a look at it. Specifically, look at the little arrow I put. I don't know if people got who that was. If you take a look, there's a W.M. Cooper there. I think I know who that is. And if you've done some reading, this is so weird. That's one of the very first books I read about the subject. When I first got in, for no apparent reason, that's how I know who it is. Behold the Pale Horse. So have a look at that shit. I spend a shitload of money just to look at these papers because this is all I do, and it almost drives me crazy sometimes with my experience. So go ahead now, take over, and I'm done. I just want to put that in there. It's in the nest.
I'm I'm gonna add one more thing, and then I'll stop it. Essentially, in the archaeological community, you have to go more to the underground because there's archaeological that's not funded by major universities that are more independent. There are these talks about, and you get this in different topics, so it's not like exclusive to archaeology. This happens in various sectors of different, I don't know, commerce, whatever. They always talked about these discoveries. They call them two things. There's the more famous topic, or the quote is the OOPART, which is an artifact, right? So that's one thing that you see, that we find these out of place objects, right? And then the other is the actual craft. I have heard from various individuals, credible, about that they discovered crafts, and some of the first crafts that were discovered, and it was pre-Roswell. It was pre-Roswell. They discovered crafts
Just
in
I'm trying to tell you.
fully.
So look, bro, I just posted in the nest. If you look at it, you've got the Nebraska incident, pre-Roswell. You got the Aurora incident. That's what I was
Yes,
talking about.
Aurora.
So have a look at
Yeah.
Go look up in the nest. I actually put some white papers up there that P Research put out there, and it talks about bodies who kind of claimed it, where they went, what AFI they went through. So if you do your own research on this, I'm not shitting you guys. Look, you have no. Let me put it this way: you can't come in and bitch about this topic or be spouting shit to people if you don't go in and do a little bit, because you take stuff like this. Maybe some of it's not real, but someone actually challenged one of these incidents as crash retrievals. That in New York, during the Civil War, one was shot down, and sure as shit, somebody was bitching about that's not real. And then someone else said, "I'll be freaking damned." Why has no one talked about this? So
Yeah,
I
they
spend
hush it.
money to go do shit like this. Yeah, there's probably crashes way before that. That's what our government supposedly knows, and it's in the link. You know what the nest is, bro? Click on the nest, and it gives you the link to these white papers.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
why I was
important.
talking about it
Look that
actually,
shit
because
up.
I saw it. Yeah. That's why I wanted to mention it, because there's actually one account in the I forgot the name of the indigenous tribe, but they actually said that the craft came down on a regular basis, and they actually were able to go on the craft, and they would take them above the earth, and they would basically, I don't know what they did up there. I don't recall the whole story, but this was a very common occurrence, and I actually mentioned the Leonardo da Vinci story where he talks about the same thing, that they took him on a craft. He went up above Earth. He spent some time there, and he came back down, and he was instilled with all this knowledge. So, in many ways, the story of humanity, in many ways, does kind of indicate that there was outside knowledge, some type of intervention. Because I still have a hard time wrapping my head around how I go back to the same thing. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but if you look at the pyramids of Giza, those things do not look earthly at all. There's no paleontologist or any um, evolutionist that can sit here and really give me a conclusive explanation of how humans in any given amount of time went from nothing to that. Like, I'm sorry, Gobekli Tepe. I love Gobekli Tepe as a site. It's fascinating, but it just shits in comparison to the Great Pyramid of Giza. It's not a disrespect. It's just we are comparing literally a playhouse go-kart. Not even. We're comparing a golf cart without a motor to a freaking, like, I don't know. I don't know. Something. It's just there's nothing I
buddy.
can compare it.
No, I get it. I'm not trying to be rude. Now, listen, guys, if I ever interrupt you, it's never personal, because you got hands and stuff up. And I put my hand up for a reason, because sometimes we're lagging and stuff like that. And all good points. That's why I was making those early. So let's get over to Sam, or was it Kent who was next? And I'm going to put it in the thread real quick. If you don't believe in downloads, I got one last night. I'm going to put that shit in the thread. Tell me what you.
Yeah, it was malware.
I'll jump in, Sam. You know me, I talk too much. I would say, just a personal opinion, that the Pyramid of Giza pales into insignificance compared to Baalbek. The construction, engineering, the mode of moving the equipment around, moving the stones around, makes Giza look like a matchbox set. 1,600-ton slabs of stone being moved around and placed with perfect precision. You can't get a razor blade between the stones. And that was just the foundation.
That's true. The Baalbek is overlooked a lot. It's actually really fascinating. Um, the logistics of moving the stones is the one that perplexes me even more than Giza, for sure. That's another one. Wow, that's a tough one to swallow. And Pumapunku as well.
Yeah,
Whatever's left of it.
too. Have you seen the
Yeah.
latest lidars of Pumapunku? The 5 structures underneath, they're massive. They
Yeah.
make Pumapunku look like, tiny tots.
Yeah.
Just a quick one too. Sorry, Sam. Just a quick one too on Baalbek though. What people don't realise is that it's not just the big mother stone that everybody sees, the one that's sitting outside. Have a good look. Have a really good look at what is actually in Baalbek. And it's not just one or two. There are dozens of 1,000-ton plus stones in perfect position. And some of those stones have been raised 10 meters in the air. 1,000 tons plus, and they've been raised perfectly 10 meters plus in the air and put into position. And what's his name? The British guy, blonde guy with a mustache. He does a really good he does a really good documentary on it and walks all over the structure. And I'd love to go to Baalbek. I think that'd be a fascinating place.
I just shared the video on the nest so you guys can see what it's like for using a drone to film it.
Dude, did you want to add something?
Oh yeah, I like the idea of talking about like Parsons and this idea of where our idea is coming from, and the contact of non-human entities probably going back quite some time. And I think that it's an interesting avenue to like look into when you look at like the development of technology over this short amount of time, and the idea that we can kind of throw our consciousness out and influence things that are outside of us through astral travel or remote viewing. And so the idea of these beings kind of being remote viewed by other beings, I guess, is more the concept. Is kind of really important, especially if you consider that they might have influenced us to create certain technologies that might make them like easier to interact with us or whatever, right? And so I think that there should be some study into that, because it would be interesting to find out that we've actually been engaging with non-human entities for quite some time. I mean,
to your point, Sam, folks, I've mentioned it before too. Simultaneous inventions. When we have two different groups of inventors that have invented simultaneous inventions that are almost identical, Marconi on the radio and other guys, our periodic table was the result of a dream. Some of our greatest maths equations have been solved as a result of a person who said that he used to get his information from a deity in a trance. So the passing on of information to our species, and even if we just go back to the ancient records, almost all of the ancient cultures don't say that they learnt stuff themselves. They said that, quote unquote, the gods came down and taught them about engineering, maths, medicine, all this sort of stuff. If we can get past our own arrogance, it makes more sense that this knowledge is being passed on deliberately by whatever, yeah?
Yeah, I guess it depends on, what their end goal is. Whatever these entities are. If they're trying to advance civilizations towards a certain direction, and they're going to probably leave out some things or add some things. It's kind of a wild thought, honestly.
Yeah, for sure.
Shane?
I'm really bad about doing this because, like I said, I kind of wild out today and kind of came at somebody because I'm not here for the clicks. I'm here to figure whatever this is out, right? So, UFO Expo, March 3rd through 17th. I'm actually going to go chill. I'm going to hang out with Toby, one of my co-hosts. And what is it? Can you post the date up in there and that? I'm going to be on one of the panels, bro. And I don't usually like to talk about this shit. You know how crazy it is to go from being a mentally ill street addict, ridden by, just sick with war and stuff, to all because you had an experience. You keep having them. And it's like, I ask myself, is this stuff real? what's going on? I continue. I mean, the things I learn, the things I do, it's all because I dive head first. It's important. And I know, again, guys, my favorite people are UFO Twitter people. Of course, the only people that like me and know me are UFO Twitter people. But I see people say bad shit, but no, some of the smartest people I know, the things we talk about, I learned my shit from these people. Shit, if he's not in here anymore, Pliskin, and Dick Butler, they saved my life. You know, stuff like that. I got shadow boxes for them that keep getting fucked up. I tried to order some unit patches from the military, and they keep sending me NA or AA patches, and I'm like, what are they trying to hit at? I'm not using shit. What's going on? Like, who here's an alcoholic or a drug addict? I literally order military patches, and I keep getting drug addiction patches. I said, I'm like, what is going on with this shit? So, Kent, go ahead, take this. You take the mic right now.
Oh, hey, mate, it's this subject. I mean, it does it to all of us. I just wanted to say, again, a personal opinion. I think the collective consciousness is starting to see the beginning of the future. And I just think guys like you, guys, all of us that are talking about the subject, opening up our minds, hearing all the different stories, whether we believe them or not, we're opening up a doorway that won't close. I think we're part of the disclosure process. I think all this is part of the grand scheme. And I just think it's great that we keep talking about it. Don't worry about personalities. Just be together and do the right thing, you know.
Hey, Sean, I know he's not up here talking, but see, isn't it funny that it's super important that we get people to keep open minds and just as experiencers? Because I know a lot of people approach this as something completely different, okay? I get that. So when you have people that are constantly, I guess, just like throwing things out because it's not their experience. And I asked Sean because, like a lot of you, he's just continuously experiencing whatever's going on. And that's, we can debate all day long. That's the thing. It's just, it's so hard for me sometimes to relay to people that this happens, that like Sean, myself, and sometimes people don't just see it once, twice. Hell, my family does, like I said earlier, but why? It's not a special thing. It's not about that. And because if you dig in this, and I talked about Masquerade of Angels earlier. If you go to conferences and you talk to people, or if you actually read about abduction, which I'm also reading another book about that, one of Carla Turner's books, my mind went places changed. If you're someone who's continuously experienced it, you see these checklists. The super experiencer checklist. I don't give a shit about that because that's an annotation I don't like. It's like it's awesome. I don't think that. So I don't know what it is. I'm neutral. What I'm saying is this: is as you look at this, I remember being at Congress. They asked me to do regression therapy. I'm like, I don't want to do that because I like to spend a lot of time in the mountains. And I went to the mountains alone one time, and I came back one time, and I have something in my hand that I don't know how I got this. It's off metal detector. It's got a clean scar. I haven't had a surgery. Now bear with me. It was probably me, but missing time. I had that. I was literally homebound because of the pandemic. Continuously seeing not just crap, nuts and bolts, things I don't even like to talk about. That I actually, why I do UAP Med. People should have a chance to talk to therapists because how do you get pulled back from the edge of reality if there's so much more to what we already know? Because when you see something, it's just an example. Let's say you see a gray. Your mind goes from thinking that one thing doesn't exist to there's a possibility everything exists. And I watch people dive head first into that. So again, message, UAP Med, Ted Rose, also another person who saved my life. I vomited my experience to him. It was the most insane shit. I also believe in downloads, precog, things like that. Wordom. I think it's intuition. It's all tied together, part of the topic for reasons. I don't talk about them because let me ask you this. Gary Nolan says, hey, you got to know who you're talking to, kind of specifically word it right. You don't go to people and say, hey, blah, blah, blah. Aliens are real, precog's real, everything's tied together. So you got to be very careful about how you word it. So, because it can pollute the message and it'll turn people off. I just think it's all tied together and intuition, maybe. And we all call it different things. So go ahead, Kent.
I just wanted to back you up, Shane. From personal experience as well. The only thing harder than having profound experiences or or what the sort of stuff that you're seeing and other people are seeing. The only thing that's harder than that is people not believing, because most of those things are life-changing for people. And when their life is changed, you can't change it back. Once you've seen something that's beyond reality, your reality has to change because it's reality. And the only thing that's harder than that, and the transition that sends people through, is not having people who believe them to help them get through it. So that's why UAP Med and all this stuff is so important. The counsellors, the people who are going to work with people who've had PTSD from these experiences, in my opinion, have the most valuable job on the planet for the future. And I can't hear that beautiful southern sultress, so I'm going to have to drop down so I can listen to Lacey. I hope you're doing well, love.
Oh, that
I can't
reminds
hear
me.
her either.
Wait, because she's not up here. Wait, that reminds me, Lacey. I've sent you good vibes. I hope you're okay. I saw that picture. I know you're in pain, girl, and I've been thinking about you because that's horrific. I actually took some edibles for you, okay?
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so I took double mine because I love you so much.
Oh, I love you too.
That's so thoughtful.
I had an early morning cone for you too. I saw that picture, mate. Oh, mate, I feel so bad for you. It must be horrible, but I hope you feel better soon, though.
Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
you know what?
I
You're
love
here to
listening
talk
to you
aliens.
guys.
That was my bad. Okay, Lacey, you're here. Welcome. You know what? Your voice, you sound like my mom. Her voice, her accent's the same way. But I did see that picture too, and I was like, man, that pain. So I sent you some good vibes, and I know you probably got them, and I'm glad you're here to talk about it. Let me ask you this: did you see the kind of the prequel type thing where they were showing about weaponized? Who's going to be on weaponized, or like the little trailer?
No, I haven't seen it. Is that up top or in the corner or on it?
Logan, you want to update her? Anybody even want to update her on what's going on?
Do what now? I'm lost.
We're going to have Logan update you. Logan, why don't you let her know what we think is going to be on weaponized tonight?
Let her know what we think is being weaponized tonight.
No, on the podcast, who we think is going to be the person on the podcast on the podcast weaponized. You came in, you said, I don't know if you want to say the name. I tried to throw you softball, bro.
No, that's not what I was. That's not what I was talking about. And
don't you think that's who's going to? Oh shit! I just. So I think that's who's going to be on weaponized tonight. In my opinion, I don't know. No one tells me. If you look at the skewed face, I think that's Axelrod tonight, midnight, EST.
Really?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought everybody knew that. So UFO Joe tweeted, and I'll try to find it, put it in here.
I'm a little behind because of all this other, so.
Okay, let me catch everybody up before we get to Sam. Real quick summary. UFO retweeted that tonight there's going to be a podcast, Weaponized. It's George Knapp as well as Jeremy Colbert, right? Did I say his last name right? Anyway, tonight they're going to have that person coming out of the shadows, but they're going to have his face kind of skewed. Lou mentions there's going to be an individual eventually coming out of the shadows, and I always thought it was Axelrod. This guy's face is skewed, but he looks a lot like Axelrod. Now, we can all debate who Axelrod is, but we don't yet. He hasn't come forward. What I'm saying, tonight at midnight, PST, 3 a.m. EST, Jeremy Knapp, they're going to have this person's face hidden, but he's on the podcast talking about this subject. This individual is the most important, more important than Lou. God bless Lou, and more important than Lou, because if his name is right, he's been everywhere, not just UAP, paranormal life. Luke's important, But Lou actually talked about this, guys, what I think. So pay attention. I'm going to see if I can find it. Or Chase, did you find that? Can you put it in the nest so people can see? I think that's Axelrod.
And this is George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, correct?
I think it's already up there. I think Astral put
All
it up.
right, cool.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's sorry, Logan. That's why I thought you came in here because when you were talking about him. That's why I thought you were connecting too. So my bad. But that's who I think saw tonight, who you were talking about. Their face is hidden up there. That's amazing if it is.
No, what I was talking about was because when I came in, you were saying that like something about like I don't want to talk about this and I don't want to talk about like that, and so I was just saying like in response to that.
Oh, I think I missed that. It doesn't matter. You did good. You were right. What I was trying to say is I thought you connected the two. So let me connect the two for you. Look in the nest, dude. The person you were talking about, Jay Stratton, that's who they're interviewing tonight on Weaponized. In my opinion, which is uninformed, I'm just research. It's crazy shit, right? Have a look. In my opinion and UFO Joe's opinion, I think.
It's not an opinion. That guy already came out tonight and said that's who he's interviewing, though.
He didn't say. He said Axelrod, not the name.
He said Axelrod? Oh, I thought he just said the name.
No, because the name. I saw the face. Wait, did I miss something? Because the face is skewed. The trailer I saw. The person they were interviewing.
Let me check again.
There's supposed to be one tonight, and they showed a highlight. I thought it was pixelized. And because UFO Joe tweeted, I wonder who this is. And instantly I said, what? I knew who it was just from, again. So tonight at midnight PST, 3 a.m., retweet that shit. That's going to be crazy. That's who I think it is. And I think that's who I think UFO Joe
3 a.m.?
Yeah, girl. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You can watch it tomorrow. Because again, if we're right, this is both of us. We're just researching.
I'm going to set an alarm and get up.
Yeah, we're just researching, so we're not going to inform it. That's Axelrod, Jay Stratton, that's going to be on tonight with a hidden face. And we're just UFO Twitter people, so FBI, don't raid me, CIA, you know what I'm saying? Don't kill me yet. I'm just rising up here.
Be really cool if he is, mate.
And we got our wires so crossed. Damn, seriously crossed.
That's okay. I misunderstood it. It's fine, but it actually brought me to a point. That's who I think it is, because there's actually a photo out there, right? Of Axelrod and some MVG type glasses, whatever. You only see the top of his eyes and face. And then if you go and you look at Jay Stratton, and you go and you look at this kind of highlighted pixelated trailer type thing, it kind of looks like a retired, because most people when they retire, one of the first things they do, because you got to shave and do this type of stuff and all this type of stuff sometimes, and it looks like a retired cam, just a little bit older. And Lou Elizondo specifically mentions multiple times there's someone else that's going to be coming out of the shadows. And I knew in my head that this is who it was going to be. Now, wait, I could be wrong. And if I am wrong, we'll blame it on Sean down there because he didn't come and speak. But I knew it had to have been Axelrod because he was the first, under my impression, the first one who ran the program, right? But he was still under some stuff that he couldn't talk about it. And we also know with the quotations that's who they're talking about in multiple books. So I'm curious, anybody else in here think it's the same person? Right? Oh, here comes Sean. Now he's going to come up here, right? He's going to come up here and talk some bullshit. Been down there just hanging out. Go ahead. When do you guys have to take over real quick? I have to run in the elevator and they cut us off. So keep it going on the UB topic. Welcome, Sean, everybody. And thank you. Let's talk about this shit, dude. This is some crazy shit. If that's really him tonight.
So hold up, real quick, not to fucking burst the bubble, or maybe I'm wrong. There's a couple Axelrods, right? So there's a couple different times that I've heard that name. I'm not well versed enough to know if they're the same. I'm under the impression that they're not. If anybody knows, maybe Red Panda. Hold on. Let me just get it out first, real quick.
Right. No, I agree with you.
I think the Axelrod in the Skinwalker book is different than the Ingo Swan. I want the fucking Ingo Swan Axelrod. That's the fucking one that I want. So I just want to know if it is supposed to be the same person or if this is the other one. Yeah, if anyone has clarification, I could be wrong about that.
Hey, I actually brought that up earlier. Good catch, too. I wondered if it's like a 007 type code name because he keeps showing up. But not only that, the two you mentioned, he also shows up in when they were writing Dark Skies, Bryce Zabel and them. They talk about specifically Axelrod comes in, talks to him, tells him put this, don't do that, and then writes something on a napkin. They're supposed to lock away and bring out something. I don't know, something along those lines. I have to look it back up. I asked the same question. What do you think? Do you think it's because again they have to be?
I don't think the Axelrod in the Ingo Swann book. I don't think that was his name. I think it's very highly unlikely that if everything happened the way Ingo Swann said it did, that he was probably given a false name. That's somebody who that's just my personal opinion. I don't know if that's to be true. Now the other one, that's supposed to be a code name, right? Because that's supposed to be this Jay Stratton guy. Is that correct, or am I wrong on that? I don't really know.
See, that's what I'm trying to figure out. What about the men there goes? You know, all these. So here's the thing. Bear with me. Before people say age, this guy has completed naval retirement. I'm pretty sure, all the way up into naval intelligence, and then went Air Force Reserve and retired there on top. I think that's what took so long. So he may have went in at like 17 delayed enlistment type shit, bro. And that may seem as old, but it's not that old. And I'm like, I think it's a code name for the old one. But how many of these are connected? Or the United States government just used that for this spot? That was
Dude, the Axelrod sounds like the perfect fucking fake code name. So I don't know. I can't call it.
Well, bro, they better ask him that in the interview or fuck. You know? Like right off the bat. That should be like the first question.
That's what I wanted earlier. I know it can't be the same because some of it shows up early 80s, right? Was it 80s or 90s with Ingo Swann? I can't remember right now. But the point being, I thought it was a 007 type. This guy here, and if he's been naval intelligence for a minute, which he has because he went to Air Force Reserve, he could have been the same Axelrod that did Dark Skies, that was there for that. And he could have been the same Axelrod for Skinwalkers the Pentagon, Man Who Stares at Goats. If it's the Man Who Stares at Goats, that also means he was the Ingo Swann. That's what I'm saying, because if you go in young, just like in the Air Force, I'm going to kind of go with it. You can go right into Office of Special Investigations. That's just what your career is going to be, right? And there's two sides. There's counterintelligence, intelligence. Army has them. Naval intelligence has them. You could have went in right away and got put into that job. And if you put the years together, I'm just curious. Somebody do the math. He has a paper out there when he started serving. You can kind of do the math and see when he went in. I'm not saying he's the same guy. I wonder if he is though.
Well, let's say he is. Let's say he is. Like, do you think that whatever he has to say publicly would be disinformation? Because all right, for lack of, if he's the Ingo Swann Axelrod, right? Anyone who's familiar with that book, there's a lot of, this is a guy who's like, you know, for lack of a better term, is in control of like hybrid fucking alien twins and shit and all this other type wild type shit, right? I wonder how likely it is for someone who's that deep, right? Who's that deep, and however fucking deep that well goes, to ever come public with information for that to even be a thing. And if they do, is it, you know, for another reason? Shane, from what you're saying, I mean, you've done way more research than I have. I have no idea if that's the same person, but I just don't see that person ever coming forward. But you know, people come forward sometimes, right? So who knows? I don't know.
Anyone have any guesses on that old Axelrod?
Well,
I think that's
Shane,
a solid point.
Yeah, Shane, I was going to mention, I watched that Zybel interview. If someone else is talking, tell me to shut up. But when I watched that Zybel interview, just a personal opinion, the guy that he was saying advising on Dark Skies, one of the things I found interesting was he said that the guy acted unusually. and he said that the guy took particular umbrance to the way the aliens were being portrayed on the show. And apparently, the interview I watched anyway, that was apparently one of the reasons why the guy stopped being involved in the production, because he was so unhappy with how the aliens were being portrayed. Is that the Axelrod from Bryce Sable you're talking about, mate?
I only know Axelrod, and again, I'm not the most well versed in this stuff. I only know that there's an Axelrod right in the Skinwalker book that I did not read, and then I did read the Ingle Swan book that mentioned an Axelrod. That's all I know.
So they're definitely not the same person. Colin Kelleher has cleared that up in an interview. They named the one in Skinwalkers, the Pentagon, as an homage to the Ingle Swan book.
Look, Andy, I'm going to say this one time. I hope this isn't loud. You can't say that without driving your ass back up here and hanging out with me again, okay? I'm just messing around. No, you're probably right. I'm just curious how many of these are code names and how many are the same parts in the same places. Because look, you've got that. At one point, they started like with the William Cooper in that document. You know, is this just a code name? I know it's what you just said, but how many are plugged in together? That's what I'm curious about. That's the important part. Go ahead, Alex, and somebody else take over. I'm going to have to walk to get pizza. It's important.
Well, really
Hey,
quick.
do you mind if I cut in real quick?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I just wanted to say real quick, like George Knapp also commented on Twitter, like in the past about them not being the same person in the two books. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, word. Yeah, that was kind of part of my question. I mean, what if it's just like, you know, like alpha, beta, like we use Roman, were those Greek or Roman? I don't even know. But we use those, or the military uses those over and over for whatever it may be, you know, alpha, you know, Zulu. I don't know. You hear that in movies. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that doesn't happen. But Axelrod maybe is just like a name that they just use for a certain, you know, I don't know, placeholder almost. Like it's just, I don't know, maybe that's the case, but probably not. And also, where was that William? I was going to ask Shane where that William Cooper photo was. I thought he said something about a photo. Am I wrong?
Sorry, man. 1 second. So you said the photo? No, what I'm saying is, okay, look in the nest up there. What I have is this. I found a P research paper. In the paper, it's a crash retrievals and bodies, right? Periodically, there's right early on, it talks about, it actually has the number of, I guess you'd say, bodies retrieved. Then it kind of has who kind of claimed them, and nonchalantly in 3 spots, W.M. Cooper. Or it's W. Cooper. W. Cooper is what it is. And I know who that is, and that can't be. And of course it would be, because again, he had the same kind of job in naval intelligence back then as Jay Stratton, Axelrod. That's the kind of shit they did. Look in the nest.
Yeah, that's
it's up
crazy.
In the nest. I put screenshots and I put a link to the actual paper for key research. So it's up there in the nest or in the thread. It's craft retrievals and stuff. Look at the names by them. Go research them. Research the AFIs it talks about.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, I know William Cooper is. That's just crazy. Great find.
Hey, you mentioned retrievals. I just wanted to mention a quick thing. I was looking at the frieze of the 1561 Nuremberg Sky Battle the other day, and I don't know how many people noticed, but it actually shows pictures of crashed craft on the ground in the frieze.
Hey guys, I'm mistaken here. Bro, Alex, if he knows about this, I'm not going to get in the elevator. Alex is right. This is important. Here's why. William Cooper also authored a book later on, which I talked about, which I know Alex read, Behold a Pale Horse. And in this book, it actually talks about an underground alien civilization. No shit. So, Alex, you want to talk about that more? Because my headset, I need to switch headsets, and then Astral take over. I go in the elevator.
Well, to be honest, I read that book when that was like probably one of the first books just like you, I ever read on the subject. And it was just one of these books. It was just like my older brother gotten it from a buddy. That's one of those books that everyone should read. It was like heavily discredited for a while, but honestly, anything on it, it's so crazy. Like it's almost like, you know, the harder something's discredited, the more interested I am in it. But yeah, I haven't read that in a really long time. I think I kind of got got by some of the discrediting that was going on, but that just reignited my interest. I'm going to go back and do some more research.
Actually, I'm not going to let anybody speak up because thank you, bro. You're right. And Red, I'm going to let you go ahead because I think you're going to actually give this tidbit about Cooper. So I don't want to steal that from you because you've been waiting.
Oh no, you go ahead. You go ahead with that, and then I was going to ask something different.
So check
related.
this out. Ask yourselves how William Cooper died. I want you to ask you guys selves that. Go research that and shit your pants if you don't believe me. And he wrote about underground alien civilizations, some other crazy CIA type bad shit, right? MK Ultra type shit. Go read. Go. First person to go in there gets bonus points and a hug if you're in Portland, right? Unless you're gonna kill me. But again,
I'm gonna kill you.
Okay, so what I was going to ask was, since like just viewing the Axelrods as different Axelrods, if you guys had a guess for who the 1970s Ingo Swann Axelrod was, like in his own thing, if anyone here did.
I don't have a good guess. No.
Hey, so why do you think they would go after him? You know, like at his old age, after he's already said everything, like why then go after him? You know what I mean? I mean, I guess people have grudges, but I don't know.
If I heard you right, I don't think he's anybody that's known, most likely.
No, yeah, like he's not known, but like if you had a guess.
If I had to guess,
like, yeah, like I feel like there's some tangential ones where it's like, okay, this could be that guy, or it could be that guy.
I think it's worth considering too, folks, that when it comes to people like, you know, super squirrels and all that sort of stuff, if people get credibility, one of the reasons why they might go after this guy, no matter how old or who he is because the information that he's provided, if he's ever given full credibility, then all that information becomes credible. So, you know, I think these guys think a little bit more long term. They're probably worried about the long term game plan of what information from the past is going to turn out to be true, and that people in the past who've been discredited are going to all of a sudden become credible. What you got to remember is that every time one of those people become credible, all the information associated with them then gains extra weight, you know?
Well, if we're talking about like underground, like alien basically civilizations, it would kind of explain some of the cave anomalies where like you see a lot of these entities coming in and out of caves.
Brian Johnson brought up, Brian Johnson has an interesting theory on panspermia. And I thought it was quite interesting because he said maybe different planets were sending different species here to live in different conditions according to what it was like on their planet. So if they were a subterranean species on their planet, then if they came here to Earth, if they were able to travel, then most likely they would have set up a subterranean species enclave.
But you could also do that on like Mars or something, or even like the
Oh
moon.
yeah,
So
yeah,
like
yeah. No, I
it doesn't
agree,
need.
mate.
I always kind of think of it as like there was like an old civilization that's still sticking around, and they needed to go underground because it was like advantageous for them to do it, maybe to avoid, you know, a catastrophe or whatever. That's just my personal beliefs or thoughts. I shouldn't say beliefs.
Yeah, but just a thought about that quick, Chase, before other people speak is, you know, one of the things though, in order to prepare for a disaster, you have to know a disaster's coming. And if previous civilizations weren't advanced enough to be able to see a cataclysm coming, they couldn't have prepared for it. You look at the Hypergeum in Malta.
Are we advanced enough to know if a cataclysm is coming or not?
Well,
or advanced enough to do anything about it?
Advanced enough to do anything about it, maybe. But the thought there, mate, is at least now we've got some idea of some of the things that can happen. We know seismology, we know astronomy, sorry. We know some indications of the risk. Unless they had a fairly advanced society, most like meteor strikes or cataclysmic events like a volcano would have been unforeseeable unless they had some type of technology.
Yeah, mushrooms and tapping into the fucking universe and all that type of shit. Who knows what they could have figured out, right? You never know.
That's not as far fetched as you think, Sean. They
I don't think it's far fetched at all. I was only half joking. I was half joking. I'm definitely a little bit serious.
No, that's a really good point, mate. Look at epiphanies, look at visions, look at people who get information in dreams. How do we know that didn't start thousands of years ago?
Sean, you made me think of like an alien species. Like instead of going to school, they just eat mushrooms. You know, like
the
the knowledge
mushrooms
comes
are
to them.
the alien species, Chase.
Oh,
That's
sign me up.
That's the fucking alien.
I
Just
agree with you,
fucking-
actually.
I don't know. I really don't know. I have nothing else. I can't build on that at all. But it sounds right. It feels right. They definitely seem alien, and it's this weird. You know, I don't know. I'm not going to get into that right now. I don't want to steer the direction there anyway. Shut up.
Red Panda.
Hey, bro, why do you guys got to take over? Chase, I literally just told you I'm walking to the pizza place and you're killing my mojo,
Can
bro.
Shay not hear me?
Here's my two possible suggestions for the old school Axelrod. First, we got Sidney Gottlieb, who was an American chemist who ran like MK Ultra and was part of the CIA's all that fun stuff during the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And then I say this because in one of LA's books, he says that Hal Puthoff told him that Sidney Gottlieb was his contact on UFOs. So I'm thinking someone above Puthoff, i.e. the remote viewing program, who's kind of in that whole network field, whatever. So that's just a possibility. We're all having fun here, right? And then the next one that I have that I was thinking about right now was Luis Walter Alvarez, American physicist. He worked on the Manhattan Project. He was actually in the plane when they dropped one of the bombs. I forget which one. But he also worked on, he was part of the Robertson panel. And then he was also part of the Warren Commission, which like, quote unquote, covered up JFK. And he was also, believe it or not, he was involved with like, what's what I'm looking for? Mapping out, I guess, the inner workings of the pyramids. So like, which is like totally kind of random for someone to be involved with so many like glowing things. He was part of the Bohemian Club, Jason Defense Group, but yeah, just the fact that he was like a UFO person who was also kind of tied into the like ancient whatchamacallits, because I think in the Axelrod story it was like about a like Alaskan pyramid, right? But yeah, those are my two guesses.
Who was the second person?
Luis Alvarez. I'll post both of their Wikipedias.
Both of those names are interesting, especially Gottlieb. I've seen his name pop up a few times.
Tuba, you just blew my mind, man. I didn't know that Valet was either a Rosicrucian or really into Rosicrucianism. I assume he probably would be, but that's wild. I just posted a story that I haven't even read yet, but started reading about J. Allen Hynek and Valet and Rosicrucianism.
Yeah, it's in my research, it's proven to be a pretty significant jumping off point. You know, I mean, it's not a religious order, it's not a secret order, it's not, you know, responsible for anything crazy. But this group of people, like, they've really tried to push this time wave, they call it, like, forward and get us to a place where we can be more what seems to be receptive and a better place to communicate with things that are kind of beyond us normally. That seems to be their main goal.
Yeah, the Rosicrucianists say that they have some knowledge that if you get to that point, it's almost like a third degree Mason. You know, you get to the top point of Rosicrucianism, that you gain access to this knowledge. And I've always suspected it definitely has something to do with non-human intelligence, but
I think so. I made a quick analogy for it, I think, so that people, because it sounds kind of crazy, not crazy like psycho, it just sounds kind of alien, an alien concept. But if you look at the film Arrival, you have this story where aliens show up. No spoiler, that happens in the first scene. Here's the spoilers, though. If you haven't seen the film, mute yourself or whatever, like mute me, I don't know. But the aliens communicate through a kind of written language with the humans, and the humans trying to decipher this language eventually start to learn it, and through learning it, decide or discover that it's changing their perception of time, and they're able to pull memories from the future that haven't happened yet. And that seems to be the actual quote unquote technology. That's the idea, is just this new perception of time. And that's kind of a really, I think, a great analogy for something that's simple, that can be like that, where, you know, it's not necessarily going to be some crazy evolutionary transformation, but a very subtle thing that allows us to perceive something that was always there, but not perceptible because we didn't create a language for it. We didn't create a structure for it. And what Rosicrucianism seems to be is, through my research anyway, is kind of building the framework for artists and for thinkers and maybe for the things where ideas come from, to kind of connect to people so that they can bring these ideas out, and they create the framework for eventually what would be society, right? And the way that society kind of functions. And they do this through like art, and they completely understand that there's, muses and there's ideas out there that are good and bad, and there's results that are good and bad, and kind of the idea of trying to find a route to the good to continue what we're doing. It's easily kind of you could say this is a summation of every like spiritual science kind of like thing. It's just a condensed version of that. But the interesting thing about Rosicrucianism, for those who might not be familiar, is that again, it's kind of a private thing. You're not supposed to, there's no meetings and stuff, right? There's no buildings, there's no like crazy thing. It's just a way of thinking, as far as I can tell. And traditionally they kind of get together, and they talk about this. If you listen to Gary Nolan's work, not that I'm accusing him of being a Rosicrucian or anything, but they talk about how they get together and they throw these artifacts that have supposedly come from UFOs or whatever on the table, and they'll have these meetings and talk about them for like a weekend. And that's an interesting thing. Like they're getting together and forming ideas like think tanks and stuff. And, if you look at, and Diana Pasulka said this on That UFO podcast, that, the Invisible College is kind of a modern iteration of Rosicrucianism. And they're studying things like all the way down to synchronicities and time and space and stuff.
I wish they weren't so sus about it, though. If that's the case, like, why have a need for all this secrecy? Because some people say Hynek was one too, like in the closet or whatnot.
Yeah, I think if we relate Rosicrucianism to like Freemasons or something, it can get a really bad context, but it's not related to those things. It's just a way of thinking. Like if you're your own person and you've studied, whatever, and you come to think that there might be something else behind the curtains of atomism or physics, you might start to branch into religion. And through the marrying of those two things, you might naturally come to something like Rosicrucianism, which is kind of like the blending of two different concepts. So it kind of like an overall term, I think, for people who want to find the connection between consciousness and physics. And so you'll find that they kind of start to naturally congregate there. Even in quantum physics, there's all these questions like, what is all this stuff? And it's all about observation and intention. And it's like, well, what's the intention? Like, what's the ether? What's all this stuff? And it seems to be kind of like a study of that kind of thing. Like Eric Davis, for instance, has a great video on YouTube where he's explaining to two people how the ether is alive, that the ether is here. It's not a concept that was really squashed, that even Einstein admitted that the ether is real, and that the fabric of space-time stretching represents a medium that is the ether. That's what people talked about, is that like light's a wave and it travels through the medium of the ether and stuff. And these are concepts about consciousness and about the structure of the universe and about space-time that are traditionally held in kind of what I would call mystery schools, but they're being brought out through quantum physics. That's the framework that I say that these deep thinkers and people who are meditating and grabbing information from elsewhere, and even artists, are grabbing ideas and they're draping them over that framework. So it's kind of like a structure, but it's not really like an ideology.
Just something to think about when we look at the people that are voicing, their beliefs or what they're seeing in all this phenomenon. One thing we do learn about in psychology is that when we're going into something we don't understand or something we're trying to learn about, we base our steps into the unknown on our belief systems. So if we have a belief system that helps us stay comfortable going into the uncomfortable, we tend to base the way we go into that belief system, the new belief system, on the old belief system. So just something to think about when people are trying to give us messages or give us an understanding of what they've experienced, or if they're investigating like a Jacques Vallée or someone becoming a Rosicrucian. If they are, I don't know if they are or they're not, but you quite often find that people use that sort of thing to help them feel comfortable and safe while they're venturing into something that isn't easily explained or doesn't fit within their paradigm. So that's why quite a lot often unusual, unexplained phenomenon will reinforce a pre-existing belief system rather than change it, because your new structure for your new belief will be based on that old belief system comfort.
That
I may
was a
be
fucking bomb.
misremembering. Yeah. I may be misremembering. I'm super stoned too, but I was thinking that Rosicrucianism arose after the end of the Knights Templar, after the church like burned the leader at the stake or whatever. They ended up going underground and allegedly moved to like Portugal. And I thought that like the Holy Order of the Rosy Cross was a sect that was also, kind of akin to a Knights Templar type thing. But I don't know. I honestly, I haven't looked into it in
That
so
was my
long. I could be
understanding
completely
too.
wrong.
No. I mean, it absolutely has its roots in these things, right? But the overall order, and like they even say that that it's named after a guy, and it's not. You know what I mean? Like, so like the whole thing is still kind of shrouded in a little bit of mystery, right? But where my research can trace it back to, not in its source or anything, but one of the first effects that it did is this huge incorporation of science and art, and the mixture of those two things to create stuff that would change society for the better and push it forward to be something a little bit more structured, or a little bit, just progressing, pushing this wave forward. And that's, a lot of these organizations, a lot of these mystery schools, they're holding on to information, that's kind of like rooted in these efforts, right? Because power and the power structures of, how societies are, we're really in a really good spot now as people, right? We don't have to be like leaders or in some crazy inner circle to be, to take part, of all the, advantages of our societies and stuff, right? Like it's kind of spread out now. But for a while, everything from education to experience and stuff was all held to people of a certain class. So you had a majority, then you had these population booms, and nothing was really going on. And so Rosicrucianism kind of, in my opinion, really stepped forward as an official thing around this time of like the 1500s and before, even into like the John Dee, this idea of alchemists and alchemy, like mixing chemistry and science and religion together to basically perfect the human body, to perfect the human mind, to get everything working in more sync so that it can communicate with these other beings a lot easier. And if you look at a modern iteration of that, you have hemisync and the Monroe stuff. It's all about the same thing, right? Syncing up and unifying the brain body machine, so that way you can better communicate and have better like creativity and better ideas and all these things. And that's another word, I think, for this idea of contacting non-human entities or getting these other ideas out there. But yeah, like I couldn't find a lot of nefarious things connected to, not nefarious, but too many strong points connected from Rosicrucianism to things like the Knights Templar and things like this. Like, it seems like there was a huge split, and a lot of different little groups started going all these different places, and then also masking themselves in different names like Skull and Bones and stuff like that. And again, I don't necessarily think these are crazy mystical things. Some of them are just kind of based on power structures and fraternity type stuff, right? But even if you go into the Freemasons, that's a fraternity type thing, but they still have these, pretty significant, like very important to their group, ritualistic practices, right? Where they have to like kind of symbolically do these rituals in order to like simulate death and all these other different passageways through kind of mental spaces, right? They have to physically do these things through these physical rituals, and it aids them in transcending through mental spaces. And that's that's kind of the same thing, where there's this unification between these two things. And one way I looked at it, and might be more conceptual, but I mean, we have 2 eyes, 2 ears, right? We can see in 2 dimensions with 1 eye, but with 2, we can see in depth. We can see depth, right? So I think where Rosicrucianism kind of like has a stronghold is that the basis of it is to unify 2 kind of things, right? And so by doing that, you get a better view of the whole. Because I think right now we live in a world where science and religion are completely separate, and maybe some of those things cross over. Maybe there's a gradient, between the 2, and that's where I think some of this phenomena lies. And these guys, these Rosicrucians, and this order and these ideas are keeping these things alive and pushing them forward through science. And you can find that through the people at the tip of the spear of ufology, which is pretty fascinating in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like the only way that this whole thing makes sense, if you believe like, and I'm not saying that I do, but all of the different ideas, like Screen just posted a thing that was about a Egyptian city in the Grand Canyon. Like that sounds a little far fetched. I didn't finish the video or whatever, but imagine there was a some sort of civilization that didn't make sense that was found in the Grand Canyon in the 30s or something. Like, how would they have the foresight to say, let's not fuck up the timeline that we've been building if they didn't have this knowledge that's been being passed down through what I would assume would be, because like government's not a monolith, governments change. The only way that you can really hold on to information is to create some sort of dogma around it. To create people who are fanatical about keeping that information. And I'm saying that not even in a derogatory manner, like, but people that are that driven and that they have that desire to keep that information alive and secret, and like the only way to do that is to really, create that dogma where someone feels so strongly about it, whether it's religious symbolism or whatever it is. I mean, now I'm kind of just going off on a tangent, but yeah, what I'm saying?
Dude, totally. I mean, they say that there's this initiation thing where people kind of have to go that extra step that you can kind of assimilate to any kind of group, whether it be a tribe or a civilization, whether it be crosswalks or, the rivers, like you basically assimilate to it. And that's the base level. But if you want to figure out, if you want to ascend that base level and go up some other thing, you got to kind of bring concepts together in a way. And so some of these mystery schools or whatever are like, the way to do it as a group and the way to kind of like allow for people to do it with a net, without having to kind of just be guided by yourself. So that's how I see them, because there's just all this, emphasis on how people work and how certain truths that aren't really there. They don't teach you this stuff in school. And I'm not saying that every one of them is true or anything, but I think someone was saying this before, maybe Kent, that like, these are tools that people can use to dress things that are invisible, right? Now, you can't turn a light on in these mental spaces. There's no light, there's no, but you can feel around. And these are things to help you feel around and like leave a Post-it or something, right? Like this is there, So these ideas and these concepts, I think, are there for that. And you have to kind of, voluntarily go into those, I mean, they say that, this might be off on a tangent, but I mean, the concepts of Plato and these Platonic solids, these were important because back in the day, I mean, I guess the sheer effort put into visualizing a three-dimensional object in your mind was something of a magic, like something so crazy, like a superpower, right? That not everybody had that ability innately, and people had to kind of concentrate, on these things, and that through the act of thinking about these shapes, they were, given access, right? Something to a greater intellect, maybe, right? And I'm not saying super smart or whatever. I'm just meaning like different states of mind. We've all been clear-headed. We've all been cloudy-headed, right? We've all had different stuff. But I mean, imagine, the fact that we have this idea of permanence, and we could have evolved over the course of the last 2,000, maybe 10,000 years, our imaginations. Like that could be a brand new thing, the ability to visualize something in your mind and plan things out the way we can now. That could be a language we're developing with our imagination, with an unseen world that didn't start that way. Maybe dreams pushed us through there. I think it'd be kind of foolish to think that cavemen were dreaming of waking up in class naked. Like I doubt they had those dreams. So, clearly these things are developing through a language. Maybe they're evolving.
We shouldn't underestimate the phenomenon appears to have been around for as long as humanity has, if not, millennia longer. Today, we take a lot of how these things manifest as technology. We talk about vortices, we talk about wormholes, we talk about magnetic fields and plasmas and all that sort of stuff. But all this stuff was happening thousands of years ago. And if you think about it, if we look at the Rosicrucians, if we look at, the Knights Templar, the Masons, the Illuminati, all of those things would have been the holders of those types of information, and it wouldn't have been seen as technology, my opinion, back then. It would have been seen as the occult, magic, demons and strange things of great strangeness. Wouldn't have been seen like we do nowadays as another form of vehicle or as another form of transport. These things would have been seen as magical devices from, for want of a better word, God or the devil. And I don't think we can underestimate how that shaped a lot of the secrecy that we're still facing today.
Hey, real quick, I want to talk real quick because I'm kind of got to go back in the pizza parlor and get my big ass pizza and eat by myself. But let me say, it's funny because either I'm just a loudmouth who hasn't talked, or I've done way too much research. Because when I shut up, the room kind of got quiet. Some people start talking about it, and I get that you guys are all welcome to talk about the subject. And I know a shitload of you, Alex, Andy, all these people that I know, you've researched these topics. It's okay to talk about anything in here. Come up, bullshit with us, because it got really quiet, and a lot of the same people, we know these same people research this topic. I want to hear from some of you guys, man, because again, the more you hear about experiences, what people know, because different people stumble across different things. I may have came across some paperwork that I put up in the thread that other people don't. But again, I also learn from people making content, Red Panda, Tube, all these other people that talk in spaces. Oh, I'll go look that up real quick. Just like people want to bitch about AI, people bitch about the calculator. Like, it's a tool. If you're not using it, get left behind. I use that shit for research all day long, and it's the best thing I've ever done. These papers and stuff. I pay for academic sites just to find papers, just because of that AI. So get up here, guys. Raise your hand. Chase, take over, man. Either I'm lagging or you're lagging, because it's like there'd be dead air for like 10 minutes, and then you're like, oh, yeah, you'll start talking.
I got one for the panel. So we're all hyped that we think it might be Stratton. What would be the most troll reveal for the blurry face?
Richard Doty.
Blue. Oh my gosh, that's the best. Richard Doty, you win, Chase. I think everything I said back about you. I'm going in the pizza place. Chase, take over.
Hey guys, I just saw a
checks.
post. Chase, I just saw a post a few minutes ago where someone was complaining that someone was attacking Jay Stratton before his interview was even released. So maybe it is Stratton.
Oh, I do think it's. I think it's probably Stratton. It kind of looks like Stratton in the blurry video, so I could see it. But I don't know. Obviously,
It could be screen name, dude. Screen name, face covered. Same thing. Not saying they haven't been the same place.
it was kind of like when Richard Doty was the Falcon dude. It's like everybody could tell that was Richard Doty, even though he denied it. But yeah, it should be an interesting interview.
Dude, Chase, you reminded me of that video. Now, I didn't know about that video. This is the one where Richard Doty had said that that wasn't him 100%. So I was like, well, let's find out, because I didn't know about it or hear about it. And then I went and checked it out, and I've never heard in my life someone sound more like Richard Doty than this dude who had some.
It even looked like him,
Oh my
like
God, everything. Like it was the best Richard Doty impression, or the filter they had magically made it sound like that. But that was really funny. Forgot all about that.
Hey Daniel, I see you posted that thing about the Grand Canyon. Do you want to come up and maybe speak about that? Your videos looks interesting.
Daniel's way smarter than me, so he'll kill this one with facts.
Better looking too, I heard, Shane.
Oh, you should have seen him when he had his beard.
I'm just joking.
Anything interesting?
Hey, can I ask a personal question, Shane? Are you height challenged, or is Neanderthal really, really tall?
All right, Daniel?
Hey guys, yeah, I was just on the road. Great conversation so far. It's great to hear everyone's input. I think, Red, was it you who brought up the Grand Canyon and sort of the whole alternative history idea of like the findings that might overthrow, conventional history and things. I think it was you or someone had said it. And anyway, so it kind of reminded me, I got to go out there a few years ago, and basically there's this story that popped up in I think it's the Arizona Gazette, and it's like a tabloid. And this was probably, I think, in the 30s. I'm going to go back and check my notes and everything. But decades ago, tabloid newspapers came up with pretty bogus stories to sell papers. I think this is kind of where this originates, but it makes for a fun story because it would be great to think that there really are things there. But the story is basically that a miner was going into some of the different areas that really aren't very accessible. And this was like, I think in the 30s, and came upon a cave entrance, which wasn't really, easy to get to. You had to kind of scale up the side of the cliff or something to get into it, and described seeing these Eastern statues that had Egyptian and Buddha-like appearances. And he went in, and there were several chambers and different things. I think he said pottery and symbols, and fantastic story. There are some locations, I think, there in the Grand Canyon that are named after Isis and Osiris and things like that, which that's curious. But obviously, if someone really came upon these types of artifacts and any kind of indication that there was a prior civilization, there are some challenges. Obviously, like a lot of us have probably been in spaces or came upon something that talks about the controversial findings in alternative archaeology, and obviously, like, in relation to this subject of UFOs, people talk about ancient astronaut theory and how things are interpreted different ways. I think that if there are genuine artifacts that are found that have any connection to something that's either antediluvian or something that's like pre-Columbian or Mesoamerican or Mesopotamian, so not European, not modern American or anything like that, but show a connection between civilizations. I mean, we see stuff like that now. I think we can maybe interpret that, but that would make us really kind of go back and think about some of the possibilities of people that have been here that we've known about, that we a lot of times, unfortunately, we call Native Americans. There are, I don't know, scores of different groups of cultures that have been here for thousands of years, and we just kind of lump them all together as Native Americans. But these different groups of people have many different, types of styles of writing, of architecture, all of this. But if anything really did resemble, like blatantly resemble Egyptian artifacts and maybe Buddhist artifacts and things like this, right there, that would show that there's some kind of connection of transoceanic travel, when we're told that was never the case, that these people, these disparate civilizations, were not traveling the world, but somehow they have architecture that looks exactly the same. I think it's very interesting, and I do think that there's something to the idea that people can sort of tap into the morphogenic field and maybe receive the same ideas and concepts. But I think that that's probably less likely than there just being a group of influencers who had a part to play in a previous cycle of humanity. And I think that if there are any artifacts there in the Grand Canyon, that people probably know about that and are probably studying them. At least I'd like to think that's the case. A lot of areas in the Grand Canyon are not accessible to the public. And I'll just end this by saying that there was a story years ago that got spread around online called The Wingmakers, and had a very similar story of someone entering into a cave and finding these weird chambers and artifacts and things that seemed otherworldly, and then it got covered up, and the government came in and they found this disc, and they basically tried to have these engineers come up with a computer or something to play or read the disc, and weren't really successful. I think it was all kind of a marketing stunt, but it made for a fun story. If not anything else, it inspires us of what really is still there and what's awaiting discovery now. And I think that if for anyone who has an interest in that story, they're called the Wingmakers. And I do think that there could be something in the Grand Canyon and in other places here in North America and other parts of the world.
For the record, that video was great when I started. Every time I talk about a video that I haven't finished, I go back and watch it, and they're like, And all that wasn't true. And I'm like, shit. But I will be finishing it.
Hey, real quick, guys. I'm at a walk with my pizza. Someone mentioned just a second ago. It was Daniel, the smarter guy than me. Egypt, right? Let me ask you a question. What other case? There's supposedly some documentation, some video on a base that something looks kind of Egyptian. It kind of reminds me, like, is that Stargate shit real? Like, literally, hold on a minute. I'll just answer everybody right there. So supposedly there's some video. Whatever this is gets out and meets with Eisenhower, goes inside or whatever, and supposedly they have headdresses that remind people of that. What's up, Frank? How are you doing in here? Go ahead, Sam.
Daniel, you're like a genius with this stuff, so it's really good to hear you, man. Like there's a lot of these theories, like you said, like a lot of these things about hidden archaeology and kind of like alternative archaeology, and I love them. They're super fun, and there is an element to them that are like seem like kind of people just kind of trying to make a name for themselves and stuff. So you got to be really weary about it. But I usually like kind of store that stuff in the back of my head and just kind of continue on. And a lot of it's kind of bug. But then you come across stuff that like just starts checking out. I'm not going to say that they found a bunch of, Egyptian stuff in the Grand Canyon, but I've definitely heard that story, but then, since I heard that story to now, I discovered things about like the mounds, right? The mound builders. I discovered things about the cities in South America or in Central America that are completely covered by jungle that were thriving, you know what I mean? Not that long ago. And things where, it was like, okay, well, maybe there was something else. Like there was something somewhere, the idea of it going back further into deep time. Do we have the solid evidence for it now? No. But I think as Graham Hancock says, right, things just keep on getting older. So it's important, I think, to kind of store it back there when we look into this stuff. And we hear things that sound crazy on the surface, and they might check out to be a totally made up story, but some of it, I think, might not be. And it's worth kind of storing it back there.
Hey, you know what? Mounds, Cahokia, all these other mounds. You get a chance, check out PD Newman. Give him a follow. He talks about psychedelics. He talks about alchemy, and he also, like Graham Hancock, talks about different places like Cahokia Mounds and all these other places. Because some of these cities, if you take Cahokia, it's one of the largest civilizations to exist in the Americas, and people just kind of brush it on the rug. Matter of fact, normal archaeologists talk about, they call them, I think it's the Clover people is what they like to call these people.
Clovis.
Yeah.
Thank you, bro. I knew I had somebody correct me, guys. Remember, I'm walking with pizza and a couple beers in me, and Frank knows this. My brother called to check on me today. I love you, Frank. So go ahead, Red Panda.
Daniel, curious if you have any thoughts on the whole like giants and Smithsonian cover-up stuff that people talk about.
Yeah, that's it's quite a rabbit hole. Pretty interesting stuff. And I'll just say, because Shane brought up Clovis, the interesting thing about the idea that there's the whole Clovis first perspective was based upon the findings of small tools, not even real people or anything, remnants or anything like that, other than just tools that seemed to be sequestered and fashioned into something that was used. And so from that, in the Clovis, New Mexico area, they figured that maybe these were the first people ever. And then we find that there are footprints and all of these other forensic archaeological findings that show that there are things that predate the Clovis, so-called Clovis people. They said Clovis man, and all these different ideas change, and so it's Clovis people, and this idea that now that's being, as Sam just said, and Graham Hancock is kind of one of his phrases, that things do just keep getting older. We do find so many things that push the timeline back of modern humans to, something like probably close to about 750,000 years at this point, that pushed, something to the effect of us as Homo sapiens connecting to other hominins at the same time. And that's a wild thought. And that kind of gets to this next point of, are there other people that have been here that maybe are still here, that are of, large proportions and maybe living in remote areas that aren't really as accessible to us without technology.
Daniel, Have you read? There's like an article that said like they found some obsidian hand axes that dated to about 1.2 million years ago. Have you seen that?
Yeah, the OO parts, the out of place artifacts. I think it's kind of like what Sam was saying. It's a mixed bag. I think that there are some genuine anomalies out there, but I do think that a lot of things, there are forgeries, there are fakes, there are things made to, again, just try to be sensational and sell tickets and all of this. That was a big deal, and that was the same thing with a lot of the early giant stories. And you have to be careful about where the validity is in a lot of those. But it's interesting to see that was a big sensational thing for a while, was people finding these and coming up with stories of giant mummies in North America, and the ones with the mounds and all of these things. And I think that with some of those findings of like what we would think is probably disproportionately scaled metallurgy and things that we would think are way too big for like ordinary people to use. I think that there are probably prosaic explanations for some of them, but maybe not all of them. And I think that it's helpful for us to see the context of the findings, because a lot of people, they see a picture, they see something, and they just kind of go with it. There's a ton of fake images online with the giant skulls and all of that, and maybe some of them are real. But I think that the important thing is that um, people in anthropology and archaeology who have been involved with field work and who are on location at places where they find these things, and where they are, the context of the findings, and understanding sort of the history of what's going on. A lot of it is interpreted through the lens of the not just the people doing the work, but through their understanding of those cultures. And things get misinterpreted a lot. And I think that it's important to see that sometimes we could be dealing with a number of issues, not just like a singular point. And I think that when it comes to the giants, there are a lot of accounts of even modern encounters of living giants, and I think that's pretty incredible. If that's really going on, if they're really hominids, whether they're some subspecies of hominin, like maybe not Homo sapiens, but they could be something else. I think that would be a treasure trove for biology and for anthropology, but not for us to make to turn into like we've got to go capture it and put it in a zoo or anything, but just for us to realize like we're not alone, in that not only are we not alone, but our genetics show that we're an assimilation of all pretty much to have come before us, the Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, all of these different groups of hominids who, throughout the last million years have in some ways had to kind of be assimilated into larger, probably more persevering groups. But when it comes to the giants, the big detractor to that is that, that gravity and the sort of natural elements and laws of nature wouldn't support someone of enormous size. And some people think when we're talking about giants, we're thinking 15 feet tall. That's extreme. But like people sometimes will look at the idea of mountains and like you know different uh, mineral composites showing this, maybe what could be interpreted as fossilized remains of like titan-sized beings. That's an amazing idea. I don't really know that there's much to that, but that gets into like the mud fossils and all of this stuff. But I do think that there probably are some good references. I know that Klaus Donna has talked about the giants a lot. Hugh Newman, some of the people who've kind of gotten into this look at it from a biblical perspective. Some look at it kind of more as, evidence of just, different people. And I think that there's something to it. Some of the more recent reports, there's the Kandahar giant from Kandahar, Afghanistan, in circa 2002, where a special ranger unit of the army found, a cave with this giant redheaded
So like we're
giant.
gonna learn Elizondo was part of that one day.
So yeah, I mean, I think there's some interesting stories. There could be something to it. I won't ramble on, but I don't know what you guys think. It'd be interesting to hear your thoughts. There could be something, and some people connect the idea of the Nephilim, something, the Watchers, all of that. Maybe there's some connections there. Maybe some people think it's Bigfoot related. It gets all over the place, pretty hairy. What do you guys think?
Um, I just want to comment really quickly, if I could, Daniel, on the thing you said about these other different hominids that were around. So that's actually something that we know for sure scientifically. We've found these things. These are humanoid beings who are not human. They were around. They had tools. They seemed to have their own little situations and cultures. They found their bones in caves. These were very tiny people. Now, they found multiple species. Okay, so and on different places, sometimes islands, okay, but sometimes continents. At least evidence of it, the fossil records, and they go back not that far. They go back to 12,500 years ago, which was the end of the Ice Age. So that means, right? I mean, we definitely had humans before. Then humans were kicking ass during the Ice Age or whatever, right? So around the time people were doing what they were doing, I mean, we could even say Göbekli Tepe might be right there around 9,000, 10,000, 11,000 years. So while humans were around and doing stuff, these other beings were there. We have proof of them. And in my opinion, not only could they be responsible for some of these structures that we're seeing, but I also think that if you just using the evidence that we existed when they existed, technically we're the giants. Because everything we found that was humanoid was much smaller than us. And in Tonga, where my family's from, I talked to my dad about this. I mean, he had no doubt in his mind, oh, these flying saucers are kind of small. Who do you think's flying them? These things that live in the mountains. And that's what all these tiki gods and all these little dudes are about in all of their art and their sculpture, is that there's these beings with huge eyes, big heads, and they're like mischievous little, I don't know, little bastards, and they're there. Like, so he was like, so in some of these cultures, that connection's like already there, that there's these smaller things around, and we might be the giants to them,
It's actually a good point. I think it was Daniel and Frank.
Frank can go ahead. I'm kind of tabbed over looking at something I was going to pull up that Sam mentioned, but yeah, go ahead.
What's up, Frank?
Yeah. Hi, guys. Cheers. Can everybody hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, sweet. I just wanted to remark, I was always fascinated by the 1977 Voyager probes, which is still kind of like, reaching going to the outer reaches of the universe. And the Voyager probes, they had what was called like these golden records on them. So they had greetings in everyday like Spanish, French, all modern languages, but they also had greetings in Sumerian, Hittite, and Aramaic. Now, Sumerian was like spoken between that we know about between 6,000 and 4,000 BC. Hittite was spoken between like 4,000 and 2,000 BC, and Aramaic was spoken from about 4,000 to BC, the time of Jesus. So I'm asking myself, well, you've got all these modern languages, which you would expect that a modern, technologically advanced civilization would be able to pick up our radio transmissions and our electromagnetic frequencies, right? But why would you include on the golden records in 1977, why would you include Sumerian, Hittite, and Aramaic, like long dead languages? That's the question that I have.
I got something just to add to that, maybe. Frank, Carl Sagan was pretty influential on what went on those, right? If I recall, for the Voyager probes. So then something interesting there is Carl Sagan served an interesting role. And my current video that I'm working on, it's been taking me forever, it covers this, but in America, the American Association for the Advancement of Science is like the premier scientific organization that has all these sub-affiliate organizations. And Carl Sagan was influential. He hosted 2 symposiums in his lifetime. One was the 1969 one with on UFOs, where Hynek spoke and McDonald spoke, and that was basically like the American scientific community's like coming down against UFOs. And from that point on, like till today, like they weren't published in the journals and stuff like that. And then he held another one that was on the works of Immanuel Velikovsky. And this was in I think 1974. So those are the only 2 he ever like held and championed. And I personally believe he was like a government disinfo or like a government debunker. So I just find that interesting that he was involved with like patterning down. And for people who don't know, Immanuel Velikovsky is kind of like the Graham Hancock of the 70s, like saying like ancient civilizations, cataclysms, all that fun stuff. So it's just interesting that Sagan was for both of those things, and then he adds those old languages to the Voyager
Yeah, I
probe.
got that, mate. Just what I find interesting is, why would you have modern languages, but then why would you have? Obviously, somebody thought that somebody else out there, i.e., others, would understand, ancient Sumerian, Hittite, and Aramaic, right? That's the point that I'm making.
Yeah, and so what I'm saying is, in the same way that he shilled for the scientific community against UFOs, he might have shilled for against these old religions or old civilizations, knowing that that wasn't the case. So that's why he included them. Just a thought, though.
Thank you very much for telling me that.
What's up, Daniel?
Yeah, some interesting points. I was just going to mention. I was trying to find it. About 10 years ago, maybe a little bit less, there was a lady who, she was, I think, an attorney for the World Bank, and she came forward and, if for whatever reason, tried to blow the whistle on this group of people who weren't Homo sapiens, who were here, that lived here in the world, who had basically a part to play in the power structure, and she described as having elongated skulls, and she had a name for them, and I'm trying to think what it was, the Latin taxonomy for it. But I think it's interesting to see, that some of these stories pop up every once in a while, and this isn't a UFO person or anything like that, but Catherine Austin Fitz kind of, I think, had been tangled up in this story as well. She's kind of big into the black budget, missing money type situation, which that kind of ties into UFOs too. But I do think it's interesting, this idea that not only are there other people, and to one of Sam's points, and I'll just say this not to disagree with you, Sam, but you mentioned that some of these other people weren't humans. And in some way, they actually are. The prefix "homo" means human. So Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo floresiensis. These are all humans. They're just a different subset of humans that we actually can interbreed with. And I think that's one of the interesting things, is that we probably did quite a bit, and that's why there might not be any, purebred, so to speak, Neanderthals left. And I think that's one of the challenges we see, is that some people have Neanderthal DNA. Some people have, Denisovan and things like that. I think it makes us wonder. There are some anthropologists who consider that in the Pacific, over and near Java and Sumatra and some of these places in the Philippines and these islands, that some of these hominids may still exist today. They know they found relics and remains of Homo floresiensis, which is Hobbit man, like small people. And to Sam's point about how, now our stature today, we don't think much of it, but we actually could be much taller than a lot of ancient different types of humans. So there are many different types of humans. And we share a lot of the same genes because we're of the same species or subspecies, just like. And I know a lot of people might think this is a bit controversial because we talk about race, but the thing is this isn't really so much about race as it is speciesism. And I think that's really important because we already know that we work with speciation, interbreeding and domestication of animals, notably dogs. Most all dog species today arose in more modern times, and if you look at how most dog genetics can be interchangeable, it's because of the same types of principles as a lot of the different human groups that have been around for the last million years. Is that we move around, we connect with different populations, we have pocketed areas of groups of people who adapt to those types of settings and environments just like other animals do. So it would be amazing to see that if in whatever way we can find groups of people, and we know that there are some out there, the Sentinelese, the Sentinel Islands, these people don't have any contact with the outside world, and they've kind of been isolated for forever, so we know that there are groups like that. And it makes us wonder what else is still out there, and if we can detect them, what efforts can be made moving forward in the event that we do say, okay, we've discovered them, we've declared them to the world. What do we do now to enact upon conservation, and conservancy and preservation to make sure that they're not killed off because of they're now being included into the world at large. And I think it's a really important part to play with any species that's potentially endangered, whether they're human, near human, or not. It's important for us to realize, like, we have the power to unfortunately eradicate like so much. And if we came upon realizing, oh, there's a very small group of near humans that we exist with, you know how many people would want to go out? Just like saying if we announced that Bigfoot existed. I mean, a lot of people would say, well, we figured that, or that's surprising to some people. But there are going to be some people who are going to want to go out gung ho and unfortunately mow them down and tag them and bag them and get some kind of trophy. It's people do that with game and wildlife already, and so we have to be careful to see that we don't instill that archaic colonial mindset with things now. I think we're doing a much better job with our archaeological and basically biological anthropology, which is kind of going through and understanding how animals work, through archaeology and all of this now. It's important for us to just have a framework set into place for when we do make discoveries. And I think that fits for UFOs, for the idea of aliens, for non-humans, giants, Bigfoot, whatever it is, small people. It's really important that we realize that our declaration of these things to the rest of the world can be detrimental to their existence. So we have to be very careful about how we go about, working this into our reality.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Daniel. Yeah, Kent.
To your point, though, mate. When we talk about what's known and what's not known by the governments and various organisations in the world, we need to keep in mind we seem to look at history very compartmentally. We've had the technology to thermally map the surface of the Earth down to a very fine level for at least 50 years, a lot longer. And we can literally, if there is any type of population center, they'll generate either thermal or electronic or a signature. So we can theoretically, obviously, if we wanted to, map the entire surface of the planet and know exactly where population centers of any creature and or object that generates heat. So any group of individuals living in a cluster will have a signature that we can detect from space and have had the ability to for 20 years. So what we know and what we don't know can be quite different. Just a quick last point too. I understand that there is a lot of scope for various entities and or creatures to live on our planet. I don't think our planet is the origin of all the things that live here and or are here or have been here. I don't think there's enough to explain that on the planet.
Shane?
Hey, great space chaser, great host actually got it. So here I am live in Portland. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this subject, and being respectful, and this is important to me. And again, Frank, I appreciate you checking on me today too, because I'm gonna probably stay one more day. I was talking to my wife just to chill because I've been cooped up since UFO Congress. I was losing my mind between my experience and everything else, and just so I ain't shitting you, man. Before you came in here, brother, I was already talking about how people. I didn't want to call people out. How people actually from UFO Twitter are the best people I know because literally calling and checking on me because I've been having some struggles. So thank you guys for being here. I know Tracy's got to go. This is on point. I'll start posting. I meant to do it earlier, but again, I was kind of walking around. The next space I hold will probably be tomorrow, and I have a bunch of my favorite white papers and stuff I have. Some of the people in this room I've kind of been a part of, and then some of these older ones that I found. So you got to go through them with your own filter, right? It's just kind of a grain of salt type thing. So I'll start posting those tomorrow in the thread. Those are some of my favorite things. I've got a whole, if you have iOS, they developed this thing called Freeform. It's like a mind map, right? So everything I find, I start throwing in there. UFOs and After Effects papers I read and stuff like that. And some of them are pretty cool. Like there's an old old ass paper about physiological effects from UFOs back in the day. And I know Nora actually found an entry from long time ago in Italy, this is no shit. I'm not messing around. It's gonna be funny. Where an NHI we'll say that's the term for UFO or whatever, abducted someone but didn't take them, put them in a tree, and then slapped them and then left. I shit you not, man. Check Norris feed somewhere. I couldn't stop laughing. Big dude got bitch slapped by an NHI because they didn't like him, I guess. Literally, I went to abduct them. Dude said, put him in a tree, bitch slapped him, and he couldn't talk again. That was actually an after effect. The after effect could not speak. No shit. So let me see. Next time I'll start posting more of those papers. Tonight was more of a, I want to get back in here and talking about it, man. This is fun. This is okay, and this makes me feel a lot better, dude. I don't have therapists for this, guy. This is where I can talk about this subject because anyone else still looks at me like I'm batshit insane. So if I go to a therapist, I gotta be careful about talking about it. Again, plug for UAP Med. I'll be interviewing John Burroughs, the 17th of February for our podcast, the Roswell UFO Symposium. But I'm also going to get to interview. This is exciting for UAP Med. Why this is important to me. Both of us had to deal with the VA. Both of us have been slipped up by the VA. Bees in here, so I deal with shit like that as well. So, but his story is very important because Rendlesham, there's after effects. What do you do if you rely on your government for your benefits and your incident happens to be an anomalous incident, so the government won't say it happened and you're sick? This guy had to go and fight tooth and nail to get John McCain involved, who finally got him his benefits. Now, let me ask you this. If the United States government gives you benefits for an incident that involves a UAP, did that UAP incident happen? Is that not admittance? Think about that, guys, before we close up. And do me a favor, guys, retweet this. This is fun, Lacey. Sweetie, take care of yourself. I hope you feel better. And I know you're in pain, but we're all giving you good vibes. My family's here, screen, everybody. Estimate. My favorite people are here. I've been missing this, been wilding out. And Frank actually called to check on me because people, I know, I guess, out of context, I realized I posted that mental health post that there's no doctors and stuff, and I'm struggling. And then I came to a resort, and I'm out here smoking weed and taking mushrooms and having a good time. And people were concerned that I was falling back into my shit. No, I'm not. Literally, I took a train to an all-inclusive resort because I needed a break. I hadn't left the house since UFO Congress. And I actually had people from UFO Twitter DMing me, calling me. Hey, dude, you all right? You tell me, right? You can tell me. I'm like, no, bro, dude, I appreciate it. And I would. Because it looked like I was just posting tidbits, me smoking a lot of weed, me taking mushrooms. But again, one of the things that's important about me, and I don't ever want people to think that I'm always trying to be, I'm always trying to be a dick. I'm only going to be me. I get there's podcast formulas and people want to do this kind of shit. And I can't do that fake shit, right? But I refuse to be anything other than that. And so I eat edibles. Psychedelics help save me from my PTSD. I'm not going to lie about any of this. So I don't do anything with malice. And you guys are some of my best friends. And that's so weird to say. Like, I just propped up people popping in, we eating pizza. And I'm just like, this is crazy shit. Let's talk UFO. So take care, guys. Retweet this. Look forward to more by UAP Med. Hopefully, I can also get, who do you guys think would be awesome to get for UAP Med that I may not even be thinking about as far as anomalous after effects? Put it in the thread and retweet it. So I'll get them. I'll put your questions in there if you want. No shit. Check out my podcast. I'm also, besides Roswell UFO Symposium, Military Witness to UAP, I'm a co-host, and I'm also a co-host and producer for Mind Escape, which is megaliths and psychedelics, which is, again, dude, I just met P.D. Newman. He's the coolest shit. Alchemy and stuff. I'm learning about this shit, you know? So it's cool going to these occult bookstores. Be safe, family. I got some more weed I got to smoke. Don't tell nobody. Just Portland. Holla.